But funny. But funny. You are but funny. The but funniest. We out here slaying. Getting swole. Am I swole? Oh, wait. That's probably not right. Hello. Yes, bunny counter is still broken because I'm stupid. And I forgot to fix it. I don't know what the... Oh, I think it's this one. Let's find out. Cure run, kids. Maybe it's that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. User daily nano bunny all. Maybe that's what it is. User daily nano bunny all. User daily nano bunny all. Back into the jar. Oh. Commands. Edit. User daily nano bunny all. Save. Hey! Okay. I might have fixed it. Hi, Rob! How's it going? I'm fixing a scuff real quick that I forgot about, that I didn't fix. You're speed eating? No worries. We're going to do a little chat here for a minute. But Funny is there. He is there. Channel points. Daily Nano Bunny. Edit. Chat message. That one's fine. Chat message. User Daily Nano Bunny all. Save. Okay. Yeah, you got time. I forgot to fix my daily check-in redeem. All right, I fixed it, so let me go turn it back on. I think it's working now. I just gotta go turn it back on. Ick. Whoa, oh, oh. That's not what I wanted. Dashboard. Rewards. Channel points. Channel points. We also have a community challenge going on right now. For a co-working stream. You're starting up? Oh, okay. Whoa. There's a giant red in my face. Hello, Red. We're gonna use Discord instead of the in-game chat, by the way. Okay, the daily should be working now. Time to crash stream. Biggest red ever, right? All right, so now I think it'll work. Let me see. Yeah, as people join, it gets smaller. All right, let me see if it works now. Redeem. Hey, it's working. I fixed it. I'm smart. I'm smart. I'm smart bun. Smart. I got the brains. I got lumps. You know I'm a smart bun? No. I'm the bad guy. Hello, Wes. Yay, it's working. I'm so happy it's working. It was so busted. More beans than me. Oh, brains. Wait. You can't spell and I can't type. Or wait. You can't spell and I can't read. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Shit, that was really hard. Why was that so hard to say? What? The HO was painful. Hi, Wes. How are you? Silent H's. H. H. Cool whip. Cool whip. That's how you say it, right, pun? Cool whip. 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 Cool whip. Say cool. Cool. Say whip. Whip. Now say cool whip. Cool whip. I cracked myself up. Aha! 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 You're doing good? I'm glad you're doing good. I'm doing all right. I'm excited to whip. I'm excited to play Party Animals. It's fun. It's fun. We're going to beat each other up with our big heads and our squishy bean bodies. All right, I'll undeafen now. Hello? I said hello. I'm being ignored. Wambat's probably starting up his stream. So I think Wambat and Red are both streaming. And I believe this is Rob and Giga's night off. Oh. You're still muted. Oh.
That's better. My audio settings have been all over the place.
Dude, mine too. My stream the other night, my audio was so messed up, I had to just stop streaming.
Yeah. I think my default, for some reason, I've unfortunately been toying with a lot of audio programs lately, and that's not helping anything.
Sure. I don't know what happened, but a couple weeks ago, I lost all of my settings in Wave, so I had to reset all of my audio stuff. Oh, thanks for the head pats, Wes. And then when I was streaming the other night, I was getting like this weird audio artifacting happening. It was like, it felt like somebody had a jackhammer in my brain.
Oh, that's concerning.
Yeah, it was like taking a sound from the game I was playing and like it was like stuck on a quick like millisecond loop.
Nice. Now, I think one of the things I'm going to begin working on is some kind of audio drama, but I don't want to use the programs I have currently available for that. So, a lot of experimentation.
I keep hearing this ad for this podcasting program that might be good for that.
Which program?
I can't remember what it's called.
Well, when you remember it, feel free to shoot me a message. Currently looking into Reaper as the.
Oh yeah, Reaper's good.
What are you talking about?
Audio.
And how it just hates us every single time we try to make a setting.
Talking about nerd things like audio.
Oh, bunch of nerds over here.
Yeah,
a bunch of nerds.
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 I also still really want to record a cover, but I don't know how to play instruments.
That is part 1.
I mean, you only have to know how to sing. You can find the tracks online usually.
Yeah.
Well, then there's part 2.
Skipping part 1, straight to part 2.
It's hard to find tracks that you can use legally.
I forgot the music in this game is an absolute fucking bangle.
Okay, let's see here.
So I forgot. I'm glad that you mentioned something earlier, Red, because I forgot that I hadn't installed Party Animals yet on my new PC. So I had to do the tutorial, and it took forever.
Hold on.
What?
This game is really fucking loud.
Oh.
It is shit tons of loud. Also, hi, y'all.
Hi, Wambat.
Yes, ad break is completed. How's it going, guys?
It is a Monday.
I actually had a decent Monday today, so I haven't been rubbed down or worn out by the world just yet.
You haven't been rubbed down?
Hey, yeah.
So no, there's no rubbing
Where
down.
do you work, Wambat?
Yeah, right.
Oh, dear Lord.
Talking about making
You don't
sure
hear
Giga
the others.
The game
That's because I don't have
now.
the desktop audio. Hang on one second, guys.
Turn back in right then.
Hang on 1 second.
So I think it's
all right.
I think it's just me and Red and Wambat streaming. Do you guys want to do shared Twitch chat, or do you want to not do that?
Sure.
I can do that if you give me like 30 seconds.
30 seconds. We're waiting on Rob to eat anyway, so it's okay.
I'm just here to
30 seconds, no more hoodie. 30 seconds, no more.
Oh no.
How's the expansion treating you?
Oh, you're here. Okay.
I feel really fucking slow right now.
I always feel that way.
I'm actually on the other side, starting with the troll part. So I've gotten through most of the normal part of Eversong.
What level is everyone in this game?
I started the quest on the other side?
Yeah, where the Lightwood is and the trolls.
Oh, okay. So you just got there. Okay.
Lightwood and trolls.
Are you talking about
wood?
World of
rubbing down?
They are.
Yeah,
Lightwood and trolls.
It dropped for
nerds.
it released for the core people today.
Hello. Hang on, I gotta lean back my chair.
Oh.
I'm playing World of Warcraft.
We were talking about audio earlier, so we're nerds, and then now we can call people nerds because we're nerds.
You wanna know what's really nerdy? My boyfriend had early access to the new expansion, so he was playing all weekend. He took Friday and today off work to play World of Warcraft.
No, I was hoping I'd get.
Yeah, I also had the early access too. I didn't take off though.
Yes, early access was last Thursday.
Yeah.
You bought the $80 version?
I'm an idiot. Let's be honest here.
This is the same guy that promised me, hey, if I really wanted to get into Final Fantasy 14, he has legitimately told me, I will power level you until the game gets fun. So
I think leveling is half the fun in that game.
All right, everyone say hi.
I have tons of fun in the game.
Everyone say hi to our new friend Gablingus, aka Rob.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Welcome on in.
I did the tutorial earlier, but do I have to do the tutorial again? Is that what it is?
You shouldn't have to, no.
I think you can just leave. I didn't try.
I'll actually do the tutorial too. I think it's just because we haven't played it in a long time.
Dude, my mic is picking up everything in Discord. It's really funny. I'm noticing this.
Oh.
Hold on.
Yeah. Alt is 100% correct.
Because it's a new computer.
No, what my interests are, and I just go full into it.
Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with that for sure. I mean, I have way too many hours in a few things, and she's like, "Yep, nope." People have their vibes.
Okay.
Have you started the share chat? Because I haven't seen any notifications.
No, I was waiting on Red.
I think Red is trying to pull that together.
Okay.
I was
just
saying
brain
30
fart.
seconds to an invite. Okay,
I love how
counting is a little more difficult, but
first you're gonna have to wait.
I took that as you were gonna do it, so I didn't.
I'll do it. I've already caused enough confusion.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah, I bought everybody. It's like, I want to play Jump Space. You don't have it. You don't have it. You don't have it. Guess what? You all have it now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Listen, I want people to play with me, so I'm gonna do it.
That is fair. I need to get back into
I have sent invites.
being a much more social gamer. I have been very locked down lately.
Lockdown.
Locked down.
I do not think that I have anybody on Steam
Thank you.
here.
Oh yeah.
So
she can just
yeah.
start
Probably
the
do
lobby and
that.
pull all of us in.
Do I?
Well, I don't have.
Yeah,
I had
I'm
Rob on Steam. 1 second.
I was thinking about making a match, and then I remembered that. I was hoping you had him.
Nope,
So-
nope. That was something I forgot about because.
Let me
and there's also
send
drops for this
you
game
my
right now.
friend code.
So if you're
Send
streaming
me
it,
friend code.
Yeah, dump it in the
Drops.
chat for us. Discord chat.
Yes, yeah,
Bubble
not
chat.
not
Everyone, I want you to be my
Yeah.
friend.
Everybody
We don't
follow
get
me.
a red for
Steam.
getting on his Battle.net
Everyone
account.
follow Rob on Steam.
Wait,
This is-
Matt, you gonna join this chat?
Yeah, where's the notification?
I sent you an invite.
Where the fuck is the invite? Oh, there it is.
I had to send him a second one. Is Ray not paying attention? Swear.
Hey, this is bullcrap, and I just don't see it.
Oh, that's right.
Come on,
Mac was
man.
also gonna join us. Wait, what is this?
I'm not putting Mac in my stream title. He's too late.
Oh, Mac. Oh, Mac. Now, if you want to talk audio with someone,
Mac's a good person to talk audio with.
very much so.
Yeah.
Mac is audio nerd.
I honestly do
Mac
not see
lives
it.
audio.
It's true.
Wasn't this the same problem last time? I just can't find it, or it doesn't show up for me.
You just have to. It should just be in in your Twitch notifications. Just click it.
It is.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
I have to have my actual channel pulled up. Is the problem?
I'm not gonna blame you, Wambat. Yes, they could definitely streamline how the shared
Thanks,
chat
Wambat,
system
yes.
works.
Thank you for the follow.
I got you guys.
Okay. Now, how do we join friends? Did you make that lobby yet? Chop, hurry up, faster.
I'm
hurry
getting
up.
there. I'm slow.
Hurry up, come on, faster, come on. Hurry up.
It's
Listen.
Monday
Hey, man,
night.
no,
No one's running in all four
Since I have to
cylinders.
go
Hurry
pull
up.
up my own
Go.
channel to get the notification.
Oh, wait,
Go.
we
That's
are already
hilarious.
friends, Rob.
Okay.
Oh, I know why. Because well, you were doing community night one night in your chat, and that's how I got your friend code.
Well, now that we've established the friends, make the lobby. Come on, hurry up.
I'm-
Let's go. Let's go, Sam. Come on, jump it.
Red.
Mystery, wait a second. I've got WoW expansion to finish up here, so I'm
He
going to be a
really
little
does.
bit.
He's in a hurry.
Oh, did I say 30 seconds? I meant 30 minutes.
Right?
But
What do you mean? What are you talking about? Making shit up.
yes.
Yeah, but I tabbed off here.
The concept
so
doesn't
I'm just
matter.
getting making shit up. Oh.
Oof. Creating lobby.
So Giga, your Monday was yucky?
We're also
my
waiting
Monday
for
actually
Mac,
wasn't
Red.
bad. Honestly, last week I had
Wait.
27
Mac, hurry up. Come on, Mac. What
meetings
the hell,
at
Mac?
work.
Mac, hurry up. Come on, Mac.
This week
done doing
was
what
like a
you're doing, Mac.
vacation.
Wait, how do I do it so it's not?
Yeah,
Teams?
it wasn't bad. I had like a couple of meetings today, and one of them I had to run. So it wasn't real quick. I just looked at it and go, I had nothing for you guys. Just
Wait a minute. I did
go
something
back to
wrong.
work. Have fun.
Why'd you do something wrong?
What's your
Uh,
question, Chi?
Why is it teams? We don't want teams, do we?
Probably not.
Mm.
I
Can
don't
you hit
How
the
do I-
info and change the teams, maybe?
Settings?
Hang on.
I don't remember how to change the
This
stuff.
game music is just so damn loud.
Is it teams or is it just
You can do free
looks
for
like
all.
2 sides?
No, it's like. Oh, here, I'll just show you.
All right. I can hear a lot better now that it's down to 45%.
Yeah, that's what mine's at.
Yeah, just
The
go
music
over
is so loud.
Oh,
here. It is
loud.
so
Yeah.
loud.
It does
It's the
default
I
worst.
turned
to
off my menu music. I don't
It
hear
looks like this,
anything.
Red.
No, I made one to see what you see. Yeah, how do you change it? What the hell?
The Last Stand classic mode. What are you all doing?
That's
Jaws.
what I did.
Oh,
create.
if you hit lobby settings, hit the settings and scroll all the way down.
Oh, I did and I didn't see anything. Okay, let's try again. I'll just try again.
Last stand number. 8 teams would be what you'd want.
Yeah,
Oh, right. okay.
Every person's their own
it's
team.
hidden at the bottom. Or
Did
something.
you
It
put
feels
the
like a
lobby
weird
code
spot to
in
put something to.
Discord?
There's no code. I'll just.
You just join directly from your friends
join.
menu in the right hand corner. Oh, I
Yeah.
just closed out the game. Wow.
Good job,
of-
Giga.
Nice.
Yay. Give me a second. This game likes to take a
There
moment.
we go.
Where, you said it was in the right-hand corner. I guess custom games and then go there.
No, if you just hit the lower right
I'll
hand
just
corner where it
invite
shows your
you.
friends
I
online.
got you.
Oh,
right
I hit
here.
refuse. Uh-oh.
What?
Oh.
You can just join through the friends thing in the bottom right.
Whoopsie daisy.
Oh, there it is, right there. Join game. Nice.
I don't.
Can
I change
I'm so
my
used
icon?
to things not working so great. Like
It's,
I guess like phasmophobia stuff you have to have.
Whoa.
Turn off
Wait.
your in-game
Oh,
mic
crap.
too. So
Chi, you gotta add me again. I'm sorry.
no, that's okay.
Hello, Mac.
I'm changing my.
Hello,
thing to off,
hello.
Welcome.
too.
There we go.
Whoa, what?
We're
All right.
Discord?
I'm gonna switch to the
I'm
game
here.
screens. 1 second.
Oh, you're
I'm
offline
just-
on Steam, Mac. I can't invite you.
Hiding
yeah,
out,
I'm-
making sure people don't see what he's playing.
No, I just opened Steam and it's offline because I launched the game before
Oh, I got you.
it came
Put
online.
myself a little higher.
And now
Yeah.
I'm compiling shaders, my favorite part of gaming ever.
Can you make my friends bigger? You guys are tiny.
It's not a real game if there isn't shaders to compile at the start.
You guys are my little
Yeah, if you
babies.
don't have to
The game is nothing but Unreal Engine.
I'll put you guys.
Luckily,
over
this
here.
game is Unity.
Put you guys over here in the corner where you belong.
Oh my
what did
goodness.
I do? Don't answer that.
Wait, how do I change my character?
Don't-
I mean, y'all
don't
are in the
answer
corner
that.
with me. I'm at least in the corner with you. I'm towering over y'all, but that's it.
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know how you change
Maybe
it.
it's just my icon. Actually,
Hello.
It might be. I think we.
I want to be
I
this
think you
cool
ch-
alligator.
Do
You change it
choose-
once you pick the game.
once-
Once you
Yeah.
boot it.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna be that cool alligator.
I am friend.
Game has a battle pass.
I am friend, your friend Roar.
Yeah, this game has a battle pass.
What?
There's a Fortnite
There's
battle
a-
pass.
There's this couple that I keep seeing their TikToks pop up on my feed, and they play otters, and it's so cute
Oh, I
and
saw
hilarious.
them.
They're so cute. She like does the little emote, the strong emote, and she goes strong fighting. It's so adorable.
I
Oh.
can't spell.
Oh look, a wild Stitch.
The person left of Maya's thumb.
Hey, a wild stitch.
Oh yeah, it's this.
Uh-huh.
No, it's Wayne Bet.
I skipped the tutorial.
Oh nice. Stitch, did you want to play with us? I tried to invite you
Look over
earlier.
here. Oh, now I'm down here.
Hello.
Oh, accept. Let me just turn
Accept.
down the sound because holy.
I mean, just throw me wherever. I don't care.
That's right. I forgot you really hate the physics in this game.
I wasn't kidding
Yeah.
when I said he absolutely crashed out last time.
He
we played.
did. He did.
Of
Hold
course,
on,
Poor
hold on.
Stitch.
did not refund it.
This
Oh,
game
he
makes me
didn't
way
refund
too
it? He
angry.
just crashed out.
He just crashed out.
He
How
did.
do I?
okay.
How do you?
Can I go back to the settings from here? What the hell?
I hit the save escape.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Settings.
I tested it earlier. I was like, am I
How
gonna
the
leave
controller
the
turned
group
off.
here?
Yeah, it's like,
I wonder what's gonna
Oh,
happen.
also turn off your in-game mic.
I just turned off voice chat.
Yeah, I don't even have voice chat on.
Voice chat range
There you go.
off.
That's
So
better.
we're gonna get all the new maps.
You won't catch me playing a fighting game with you. I alt.
All
Alright, are we ready?
Sure.
Hold on.
Ready to ruin
Everybody
friendships. Let's
re-
go.
ready to ruin friendships. If that was a normal fighting game,
Hold
I would
on.
like, yeah, I know you would.
Oh, did you see the
Yeah,
title I have
that's
for mine?
right.
It's Lions, Tigers, and Friendships. Oh my.
Oh,
I just
this
said party
man.
animals because I was trying to write it fast.
fair.
I'm
Sometimes it's
sorry.
not
I
about
haven't
Oh
really
my
watched
God,
it
I'm
yet.
communication.
Wait,
Yeah,
that was
I
a
played
robot
this-
chart.
I played this game a total
Alt
tutorial
says,
here,
you
so I'm
won't
gonna
catch
win.
me playing
Oh,
a
let's
fighting
go.
game with any of you.
Don't worry, I'm terrible at this game.
That's
and I
okay.
usually
Yeah, I
always
would
lose.
get heated too. I probably will be.
Is everybody gonna be here? Where's my mouse? Good
Wham
questions.
bam,
right?
Where's my
you need to be
mouse?
this fluffy cat because that's what
Where's
I think
my
you look
mouse?
like.
Oh, you use the arrows.
What? Can we change?
don't have a
change
mouse!
the color of the fluffy cat?
If you have different outfits for it.
I don't know. I don't know this one's outfits. I kind of want to be the milk bag.
Oh, it could be cool as hell.
What?
How do I change outfit?
Oh, the
I
person
don't know.
wearing a bag.
W
The
and S
milk bag.
changes
It's-
outfits.
It's the YouTuber.
I have 0 outfits.
Smitty's outfit. His
Got it.
icon is a milk bag.
I will still stick with the
His
orange
character's a
cat.
milk bag, so.
I have a little bit orange in my hair color, so
I
that
didn't
means
even
I
get
at
to
least
select.
have a,
Oh, no!
a brain cell and a half.
Oh, that's so depressing.
Oh,
I have a
no.
milk bag.
Oh crap!
Giga, you look at
Oh,
alien?
God.
What are you?
I
don't
am
know
a
what we're doing.
hammerhead shark. That's a cult member.
How do
Oh,
you
that's
do
perfect
things in this
for
game?
you.
I don't
Oh,
know.
somebody's invisible. I don't know who it was yet.
It's Giga.
Yeah,
Wait, I like that there's new maps. This is
Get
great.
this! I got an
Oh
arrow in
no!
my
How?
face.
Damn.
Hey, you can't pick up these boxes.
Hey,
Ooh.
hey,
Oh.
hey.
Oh, no, no,
I don't even know how I died there.
no, wham it, you bastard! No!
Yep. Bye. And there's a shark
Give me a
down there
bump.
for you.
No. How do I grab things?
That might not go
Don't
well.
wham at stop.
Surprise!
You
Okay.
hit that.
one, a
Oh,
one.
we still got hit.
Oh, all the gold here is dog bones.
That makes sense.
And guess what?
No,
I'll come.
let me go!
I'll save you.
Ow!
no.
Do not save me!
No, no,
Get out of here.
shit! No, let go of me! Ah. Damn it!
Yeah.
I got 8.
Hey, stay down there.
No.
I'll just
Oh
join
god,
you.
I slipped!
I can move. I can move. Oh, I got beaten.
No.
You deserve that.
And those are like iron. You're like
Yay,
metal. They're
I
metal
win!
sharks.
I don't know how I
Metal
just won,
sharks.
but
So
I
it's
did.
like clankers from like Banjo Kazooie.
Ow!
Get her.
Hold on. Let me take
Get her.
care of the rabbit.
No!
Yeah,
no!
you gotta point her right
No! No!
Can I get you? Get over here.
Boom.
Sorry.
How do you use this?
Kill me.
Got a taser.
Ah! Ah! Oh god.
I wanted it. I don't know what it was, but I wanted it. I was gonna die. I don't know what am I faster?
I don't know what I'm
Okay.
doing.
Oh,
I know.
faster.
No.
Shit.
Wham it! Why do you hate me? No! Ah, no, I got heated!
No.
Oh god, they're on fire!
I had spinach for breakfast.
Don't, no. My ancestors do not consume me. I am friend.
Oh my god.
Jeez, not only do you have extra stamina, you're also fast. Okay.
Yeah, I picked up a speed potion. Going up here. What's up here? Oh, up here's not alive. I'm not gonna lie. No!
What was that? There,
Ah,
Giga.
no! That was so fast! I was just
Oh
admiring
crap!
the ship.
Oh no! Get up! Move! Move!
Oh no!
No! Damn it, shark!
Crazy.
Oh no!
Up, cut him off the deck.
Oh, good job, Giga. The cult leader has
What
won.
to do? Everyone get Giga.
How do you punch?
I'm on controller side.
If you have a PlayStation controller, it is square.
Into the water. Into the water. Ah, shit.
I tried.
Into the water? Into the water? Is that what you want, doggy?
Oh god.
Well,
Oh god, I went by myself.
No, back to you.
Ah! No, my phone.
No, my plunger.
Ouch,
I want
my
it.
face.
Get away from
Hammerhead
me.
shark, though.
No,
Wham
what?
it. God
You
damn
don't
it,
want to get
Wham
picked
it.
up. What the hell?
Oh no! Ah! No!
Sure.
That was kind of graphic.
No! What did I do? What did I do? No, get up there! No! Yeah, but I caused my own death.
That's what you get for picking on me, Wham it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Look.
hey, that's my ass.
Look up,
That's
fast.
my ass. Hey.
Sharky,
Come
wake
to
up.
me.
Kaboom!
Get him, honey. Tase him.
Oh.
Oh, that's a bomb.
Throw him in the water.
Bomb buckler.
Gotta tase him again, Red.
Oh, no,
Whoa,
poor
my
man.
God, he just sending me.
Yeah, throw him in the water.
And I'm in the water. Throw a bomb.
That guy, Giga.
Sorry,
Blacked him
Giga.
out.
Sorry, Giga.
Yeah.
I'll just throw you off.
You probably will.
I'm still walking away.
Those sharks are
God.
scary.
I'm getting roid here.
Don't worry, after a few
My
maps,
God.
you'll feel more comfortable.
Hold on, I have a bunny rabbit to take care of.
No!
Put it-
No! 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 No!
Hey, hey.
Okay, never. Get
Just playing with
back.
that.
Hands off.
Yeah.
An alligator
What did I
hand.
tell you? I was playing.
Don't you dare.
I want to play with my toy. It's a
I
gun.
think I knocked myself out with you. Bomb.
Joe, he gets crazy. He's
Ah!
everywhere.
Ah! I'm scared!
What is this?
Oh. I went to
Well, neither one of us kicked each other, but whatever.
Oh, sorry, Mac.
No, my finger that I had to put in this.
Ah!
Ow.
Ouch.
Oh, you thought you had me, but I was coming for you.
Oh no! It
I don't know
faked
who
me
I hit that
out!
time. I think it was Chi.
No, Giga punched
Oh,
me.
shit. Sorry, Chi.
That's
I kept
okay.
dropping the
Giga's gonna get his revenge.
Ouch.
Too far! Too far! Why? I hit you and went so far! No! I got so
Bye, Red.
far!
Ow!
Jump, 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 jump.
Oh, I just took it to the face.
That's what she said. Ow!
Rubbed down earlier and now just took it to the face. Jeez.
No!
I know.
Banana.
No! Mac!
I'm just
Oh,
giving
I
you
got
all
an
sorts
apple.
of like audio
Oh,
lines.
wait, I got banana field.
Oh, I'm gonna get
Oh, I just walked off the front of the ship. I'm dead.
Banana.
Damn it!
Banana.
No! No, Wham it!
Banana.
No!
Chi, wake up! Chi, wake up! Oh,
I just headbutted myself into the crate.
no, the banana!
No, I'm gonna blow up! Oh no, I jumped!
You're well.
Oh, really not help
I
out?
jumped into the water!
By default.
Well, damn it.
Hey, statistically, I have to at least win one.
Says who?
Statistically speaking.
Quit picking on me! Let me go!
Wow, I'm swimming down.
Oh,
I'm
no.
dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. Okay, no,
I'm
I'm
dead.
alive.
Almost got me with
I killed
that.
myself.
Damn wrecked. It's hard. I forget how hard it is to climb back up.
Alright.
Ow, don't hit.
Well, I just threw the gun away.
I have a weapon. It's a shovel!
Oh, thank you. Thank you, side railing.
Jumped into that one.
There you go.
Nope.
Oh my god, this fish!
Fish.
Giga's going for the shovel. Giga's going for... Hey!
Why? Why?
Oh, no.
No.
Caesar!
There goes Red.
No, I'm still alive. There's a oh, sorry.
Oh my god,
I
that's
didn't
a
mean
hell of
to
a
punch
juke
you.
right there.
A fish.
He
I didn't
just
even
went,
punch you.
turned, and punched me there in the face. Come on, pick it up. Pick it up.
Oh,
I know.
Go
I'm
down,
gonna
Mac.
Why are we
feel
dropping the
flying.
bone?
oh,
Oh, bye,
I
Giga.
just jumped off the edge.
Good thing you're a shark.
Yeah, make friends with the other sharks.
Maybe you would like to introduce us.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh,
I know.
I'm not.
You guys are all
No, I'm not touching that.
Electrocution.
Every day I'm struggling.
No! No!
We got the gun again.
there
We got
goes
the gun.
Wombat.
Watch out.
Shrek didn't even give me a
Choo-choo.
chance.
He doesn't have it anymore.
This is the New York police.
He's got decked in the back of the head.
Oh, shit. Well, Mac.
Nope.
Nice. No, yeah. I can't throw you farther than that right now. You're just gonna have to, like, dive for me.
Oh gosh.
Can you just
Please
go in the
don't.
water for me? Like. Oh, no, it's a draw then.
Let fate decide.
Oh, give it to me. I'm a winner.
Oh, red one.
I should not
Game
have.
sucks.
Okay.
I want a lollipop.
No. Let's talk about this.
Yeah,
So-
we need to focus on red. Red
talk
needs
about
to be
it.
the first one.
Oh, I knocked myself out.
Making it easy on us.
No.
Why is it
Calm
rolling,
down.
bro?
No, I don't want to calm down. How about you calm down? How about you get out of here, apparently? Gee.
Ah! No, my lollipop.
I'm gonna need you to die.
Nope.
Now she's got hit in the spine by
I don't
now.
expect
No,
you to
I want my
swim. I
lollipop.
expect you
Red.
to die, Red.
Okay, I was gonna let you get your lollipop, but Wayne knocked me out too.
That's because Wambat's a bully.
Yeah. That's
What?
right. Wayne
I was trying to knock Red out for you.
Oh,
Oh, come on.
Don't do it, Red.
no.
I'm taking everybody out.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh
Okay, knock me up. Oh, knock me up. Oh.
Baloney.
No, I'm gone.
no! Oh
Oh,
gosh!
that took me out.
Holy. Giga went through the moon.
I'm snacks.
Yeah.
Quickly, get Mac a win. Take out Chi.
Yeah. The bomb.
Ah!
Oh, Mac.
Oh.
Oh
I got it.
no! Dang! Mac got it! That was so close. Oh my gosh. That was crazy.
Lollipop.
Hey,
I'll
hey,
let you
hey.
have it. I'll let you have it.
I know, I'm not holding it right.
Why can't I get on this thing?
Come
No,
here.
stop.
Ow.
Leave.
Goodbye.
Ah,
Yeah.
Triangle is jump.
It would not even let me get on, like, attached to the ledge.
Oh. Ouch!
Punch.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Oh, no. Don't hit me.
No! Bad shark! No! Damn it.
Down.
Run. Turn. Ah, shit, you fucker.
Oh, I got sent.
Yay.
Oh,
Ooh.
I think I'm toast.
Run away.
Climb faster, Sharky.
Oh, wait.
Ah.
We
Yep,
run.
up here's probably the best.
I suck at this map though, so the
Rob's
fact I
getting
have one
his
star, I'm very
sea legs.
happy
What are you?
Thank
Well, that
you.
was a
Just keep
terrible
whacking
throw.
red.
Mac,
How do I?
Mac, I think we got a
How do
problem.
I? Yes. How do you ragdoll?
Oh, I dodged.
Thanks so much for the
Dodge.
follow. Welcome on
Dodge
in.
that one.
Triangle. No. Triangle. Circle.
What are you trying to do?
No.
Rectangle.
Oh no! You were there for so long
Like-
that time.
Jump attack.
I win for trying.
You were doing so much better that round.
Okay, let's try it again. So triangle, circle. No, that's just a head nod.
Ah.
Why is there a bomb already? Oh, what the fuck?
Triangle, circle.
I'm dead.
Triangle,
That,
circle.
I don't know.
Get up off me,
That
Wimbat!
bomb. That bomb came in so fast.
Pick up the...
Just under me.
Run!
Why did I just drink?
No!
Oh, I got
There's a face
zoomies!
gun.
Oh, I got zoomies! Oh. Oh.
Damn.
Well, so much for zoomies.
Guys,
let me
Mac
work
is just.
quick.
You both go,
One
that's
way to
fine.
throw a person off. Let go of my
triangle.
tail.
Oh, it's
my
triangle.
God.
Okay, I'm being stupid. Triangle X. Woo! Dodged. Run a
I
little
want the
bit.
plunger. I
Boom.
want the plunger.
Oh god.
Oh no.
Banana.
Punch, 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 punch,
Punch, punch, punch, punch.
punch.
Oh no. I wanted the
Okay,
plunger.
so-
Don't you
I stuck the plunger in Mac.
knock myself out on the railing.
Oh no.
Wow.
Mac's got a plunger stuck on him.
Oh,
There you
no!
Oh no.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. No, no, damn it!
No, shark. Dang.
Let's
Ball.
Terrible.
I say this.
I'm
I was
gonna
trying to get one that was stuck in the
Come on in.
handrail.
Yeah, you were stuck holding the handrail. Look, I'll just push him over.
Oh no, I'm gone.
Oh.
So the gun was literally underneath the handrail. So I was
That was
trying to
good try.
grab the gun underneath the handrail, and it just didn't want to grab it.
Oh.
What if I swim? Oh, and then I blow up? I don't blow up? We don't
You
blow
lived.
up?
How'd you not slide on that banana? What the
Magic.
Oh, oh, am I toast? Am I toast? Am I toast? Not if you try to kill me like that. I'm not.
Oh no.
Oh!
Oh.
Absolute lie.
Let's go,
Nice.
Mac.
Oh, nice job, Mac.
This game's baloney. I just saw that in action. What the hell?
Okay, I mean, I'll take it, but also no.
Oh,
Wait, hold on. Let me do an emote. Let me do an emote. Let me stunt on him. Oh, I can't.
I'm trying to
Damn.
fix my track and use their dead.
Are you guys kissing? What's going on there?
Ways to strike her down. It's fine.
What an
Giga's-
emoji.
you strike
Giga's
me
like
down, I
face-
become more powerful.
Giga's face first in the cleavage.
I'm
Yeah,
a
no.
Dracula vampire.
Oh god.
He's like,
Oh my
cleavage.
Oh. Oh crap.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I know the. Maybe I don't know the controls. Hell yeah!
Oh man, I'm already
Yes.
knocked
Oh,
out.
man.
Give me the PUBG pan.
Nope.
Oh,
Come on.
just threw
Okay.
it.
I'll take that.
Put the gun down. Put the taser down. Put the taser down.
Ow!
As I just.
Oh,
Oh, I'm
shit.
in the mist already. Am I dead? Am
Oh
I dead?
no!
Oh crap.
Oh no. Oh no.
How
Taser.
much of a troll do I want to be?
Giga! God damn it! Well, I'm dead. Fuck.
Triangle.
Okay, I'm gonna kill the thing with the darts. Let go of me. Oh, you don't have it anymore.
Yeah, I put it down.
Okay, I need to remember. Triangle X. Fuck. Triangle X.
No.
Triangle.
Frustrated shark noises.
Oh no! Oh no!
Get him out of here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh,
my
oh,
God.
They're all dead.
Climb out. Climb out.
They're all dead. I'll go by myself.
Which one of them's clinging by the edge, still alive?
And we
Oh, Red! I was wondering where you were, you shit!
Wow!
Man,
You little cheater!
I'm not
All right, everyone
Wow.
get red
There's
for pulling that
stress.
bullshit.
Wait,
Oh, bomb.
what's the box in here?
I don't know.
But I don't know if you put a password on it, so
I
it is
didn't.
definitely a random.
We might got a random person.
Let's go.
No,
There's a
no!
fox.
He's climbing again.
I don't know what he's talking about. No climbing.
No, get up, get up, get up, get up.
No climbing here.
Get punched, fox. Ow.
Beat up the rando. Beat up the rando. Is a threat. He's dangerous.
Dang!
Take out the rando.
Yeah, it's not working.
Adorable.
Oh god!
Gonna be an adorable little fox.
I know, it's really cute. I was like, oh, it looks like red.
What are you doing over there?
Red, where are you?
Banana me!
Oh, you guys were up there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Get him
You just died.
down.
I forgot. Wait a minute, I wouldn't go up there if I were you.
Hey, you're gonna die.
Did Voxel leave when we get another rando?
No, Voxel's still here.
Oh no, still here.
I'm dead already.
We just got another random.
We're all dead.
So it kills. So after when it comes down to that last minute, it kills whatever on top.
It just starts killing
It
the
just
field.
mist had dropped into that area.
I went to bomb. No, I went to bomb.
We can lock
Get
the
him out of
lobby
here.
after this round.
yeah.
Ah, I'm getting poopy.
The bugler's got a bomb.
That's one way to use a bomb.
Oh. Lollipop!
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm
You
doing.
got a lollipop, watch out.
There's a poop.
Can't get a hold of it the right way.
Who pooped?
Oh, there's a shit. I want it. What can I do with this shit? Can I like just have a shit? That's it. That's just a shit.
Oh, gee, I was killing the
you
rando.
throw it on their face and it blocks their camera.
It's just,
No.
What the shit?
No, my lollipop!
Get out! Yes, you.
Yeah. Oh. Zoomies!
Lay down.
It's a zoomy potion.
I got a bomb.
That's one
Ah!
way to use it, Wayne-Bat.
PUBG.
PUBG.
Oh.
No, no, wait a minute.
PUBG. Pan somebody.
No.
Oh, I can't pan anybody.
Oh no, I fell.
You killed us both.
Nope.
Don't.
Boing.
I
Bomb.
just absolutely failed that edge guard.
Ah.
And the kick is good.
Get fucked.
Dragon. Oh no, I fell.
Whoop.
Oh,
Juke.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die.
Chi,
I'm
Chi,
gonna
get
die.
up.
I'm gonna
Chi, get up
die.
quickly.
No,
Bomb.
I couldn't poop anybody.
Oh, hey.
Ah, I got
Oh.
blown up. No,
Wayne-Bat.
I'm dead. No, I died right by red.
No.
Oh, are we dead? Are we dead, buddies?
Mhm.
We are.
Not just yet. Now we are.
Oh, he fucking.
Throw him off.
Just leave him in the fog.
Have a bomb.
Oh wait, I forgot it was all foggy already. Yeah, I messed up. I forgot
Wait, what's
to
that?
password protect the lobby.
What the hell? We're getting like
Ah.
70 people. No,
I
you're
got
not.
shit to do. I got shit to do.
What the hell is that?
No, you don't.
Oh, it's a cork.
I do. It's very important shit.
There's only
person's
one
down.
shark in this. Oh, Voxel just jumped into the
Hey,
abyss.
hey. Hey, hey. I'm taking a nap. I'm taking a nap.
Oh, gee.
Got him. Get pranked.
I think
Oh,
both
God.
randos are dead.
Ah. Ow, why did I get knocked out from falling? What the fuck? I'm dead. What the hell?
oh no!
Yes.
No!
Spaghetti.
No!
I walked down, got knocked out on the
No.
way down, and died instantly. Make it make sense. Bomb.
No! Get away!
Look at me walk, buddy.
Oh god! Oh, this is crazy.
Hey, I'm walking over here. Hey. Okay, so if I do
Fun.
this, right? I do this, and then
It's
I
the
do...
21st century. Leave the pan alone, G.
Bomb.
Oh, I just remembered how to headbutt.
oh god.
I just want to make some eggs.
I would like to point out Giga already has 2 crowns.
Oh, I did a flip.
Oh
just
god,
went
I
here.
fell! I
I'd like
headbutted
to
my
point
way
out
off the edge.
Chi cray cray.
How did I even get 2
No.
crowns?
Where did I? Damn it!
Baby.
You're the worst. Oh, that's what you get, sucker! You went all the way
I got
across the map!
I got him.
It was worth it.
Oh man.
Oh, sorry.
Go, Rob!
I
You
really
got
Killed
this!
everybody's ears.
I need to invert jump
Banana.
and ragdoll.
Oh no,
I'm
Rob!
gone.
Well, short-lived.
Here's my signature pan for you.
Alright, we gotta
Fine.
put the lobby
Back
on
to lobby.
lockdown.
Yep. Yeah. Is it really a defeat if I'm having fun?
Right?
Yeah.
Now, my own GB. I
Just gonna stand up, guys.
Oh,
there's
You
a
can just
shark in
quit
here
the
too now.
lobby.
While we
Kick
really
one
need it.
player out
Yeah.
of the podium.
Do we just all have to leave?
do we just have to make a new lobby?
Basically.
Okay,
I
I'll
think
password it this
so.
time.
Just drop it into WinTat.
Yeah.
You can grab the missile and fly away. The missile is.
Alright.
How do I?
Leaving,
What's the
leaving,
options menu
leaving,
in here?
leaving. There we go. Leave game. Bye.
Leave game. Yes.
Hasta love. I don't know. No,
Hasta-
about
hasta la
Spanish. What's the
vista.
game?
Baby.
What's the game?
Hasta
See
la
you
bye
later,
bye.
the game. You just lost the game. What's that in Spanish? Or is that bad enough in English?
I don't know.
I think it triggered just a ton of
Lost the El
people.
Gango. I don't know.
That's my version of Spanish.
Alright.
Wait, why am I opening eggs? What the fuck is going on? What is this?
You get stuff for playing the game. So congrats. You get to open
Oh,
eggs.
okay. I was like,
So I
was like,
got
what
the
is
eggs.
this?
I do. I have a single egg. Let me also spin the egg machine.
what
Okay,
is?
give
What
me
is the?
1 second to put it in
Oh.
the lobby code.
I gotta know.
Go back to
Accept
just talking for a
I got
second.
moose. I got a moose.
Alright. Now we shouldn't get any randos again.
It looks like a direct invite actually didn't require me to put in the passcode from Cheese. So
That's good.
I accepted.
Oh, really?
It didn't ask me for a pass awardo.
Yeah,
Where's
I
the
think if I
code?
invite
Where's
you,
the
you
lobby
don't have
code?
to.
did you put the lobby code in French chat for those that are trying to direct join you?
Yeah, it's in the
Oh, hang on.
the voice chat.
There it is.
The voice chat.
yeah.
Yep. Alrighty. Move back over.
Here's a
What
scary
is
thought
the-
for you. Anyone that was 25 and 01 is now 50.
I'm gonna remove
What?
the maps that we already did.
Yeah, can we not
We did
get
Jaws.
go about our ages? Make us feel really old, Giga.
Stop it. Me and you're the only old ones, Wambat.
What do you mean?
And
You know it's old.
Your
You're
point.
Old.
It's fine.
Let's be fair. I act older. I act like I'm 90. So
Yeah, Giga's the adulty adult. The rest of us
oh,
are
I wouldn't
just
say that. I
the
would
rest
just
of
say
us
I
are
act
just
like I'm falling
degenerates.
apart. No,
Damn right.
That's got a point. We are a bunch of degens.
Wait, I change my guy? I don't want to be the guy, the one I am. I wanna
you can change
my
it
guy.
once.
Yeah, you can
I
change
think
it in a
it's changed
second. I
once
think.
once we start the game.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
on timer.
Oh,
Yeah, there you
oh,
go.
right now. Okay, okay.
That's
Wait,
funny as Smoke Bag
Bing
was.
chilling.
I'm gonna go back to Floofy Cat.
I'm gonna stay in my
Oh,
little
we only
crock.
got 30 seconds.
I'm gonna be scary, man.
Whoa.
Isn't that Ormu from the Blind Bars?
Yeah. Yes. You just
I
scary
don't know
me.
what that is.
I don't know what it is. It's just a human, as far as I'm concerned.
Isn't that
Oh,
from
I don't-
Ori and the Ori and the
Ori
Blind
now.
Forest?
Okay, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Killing
know
each
what
other
it
and
is,
staying
though.
alive.
Oh.
Literally had someone who's like, "Is that
Oh no!
Oh my
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, this mission has so many bombs.
That was
This level
crazy!
has so many bombs.
Whoa, whoa!
I got blown off the map. That was insane.
That was funny. I love that.
I went flying so far. That was crazy.
Stop. It's my bombs. My bombs.
Oh, my controller is like doing weird stuff.
Rude.
Yips.
Yeah, once you're in that side thing, you're just gone.
Hey.
Yeah,
Ow.
Red, you're gonna have to. Red, you're gonna have to play this more and unlock the fox.
No, the fox you have to do through gambling. I just looked it up.
Oh, that's
Oh,
lame.
Ouch. Oh, I just took a big hit. I'm toast.
Yeah.
Wait, there's Gamba in this game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The egg rolls is the egg roll. The egg roll? Yes. The egg machine is a random roller. I'm down for
It's a
egg rolls.
gotcha
If anyone's
game.
ordering egg rolls, I will order.
It's a gacha game. Everything's a gacha game today.
Right? Party Animals is a gotcha game now.
Yeah, but
Careful, they're after Valve now.
Any better, no matter what you draw.
I'm trying
Oh, I
to reteach
know.
myself how to do that. Hey, so rude.
Don't run backwards. Let Red fall to his demise.
Down. What is that?
I'm busy being. Why?
Don't-
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Bro,
Red!
let him go, let him die. He's there you go.
I should have tried to
Heck yeah!
my own business.
See,
There
I
we
told
go.
you get used to it after a few rounds.
There's so many bombs. So why are there so many bombs?
I don't know, but I don't want to get
Birthday
blown
to
up again.
you. Go, go, Cap Blue.
Excuse me, I want this.
No, I want it.
I want it.
Here, bounce.
No.
Jump.
No.
Jump.
I can just sit here and do
No.
nothing. Oh, never mind.
No.
What? How did
Never
you not
mind.
get hit?
Oh god.
I'm like stuck. Okay. No.
Run away.
No, Red.
Punch.
No.
Oh, that coming.
No. No, Red.
Yeah.
I will.
What? How did you?
Oh, not Red.
I know. I know. I know.
Oh,
No.
wow.
No.
That hit.
No. No. Fell.
Country roads take you home.
Red just slide in.
Right in.
Oh no.
Oh god.
Well.
Or-
Oh. Interesting.
Roll. Roll.
Why did I go backwards? What the hell was that?
Roll.
No. Okay, fluffy kitty cat.
Hey, what do you want from me? Meow.
Meow.
Only one fluffy thing in
Meow.
this room.
Meow.
There's only one fluffy thing in this room. Ouch.
But
Yeah.
I'm like the Peter Pan dog.
There's only one.
You
There's
are
only
like the
one
Peter
being
Pan
here with
dog.
half a brain cell.
I am
Both
here to
jumped off
steal
to the
from
side.
port to
I
get to
survived.
the rich.
Taking the big man out for a walk. Stop trying to hit me.
Dang it.
Okay.
Get up, get up, get up. No, no, get up.
Jump.
No, no.
Jump, little doggy.
Damn it.
Roll.
Well,
Minute
here I
left.
am in the
Wait,
messing
you're
with
like
everyone else.
you're like riding the
Okay.
shovel.
This is horrible.
There we are.
Do you mind
I
moving?
just
Oh, God.
finally got back up here.
Oh god.
Okay.
It's weird. Like you can grab the objects so awkwardly, and then they don't work right, and it's just a mess.
Yeah.
I spent this entire time just trying to get to the top side of the conveyor belt. I'm in hell. Like, I just
Can't run fast enough. Roll.
If
Oh,
only
yeah,
the
jump.
conveyor belt went faster and faster
You
as the
gotta
round went.
jump.
Oh, it is.
conveyor
Never
belt
mind.
head. The conveyor belt
Oh
head.
no! Oh!
Getting talking around, just trying to
Oh,
get
it's so hard.
It is so
Every
hard.
time I got close, it just changed.
What is-
Ow!
Wow.
Ow!
Man got out.
Oh no! I'm gonna blow up! No!
Oh
Damn
no,
it!
that sent me.
This is the worst! I hate this map!
This
Damn
is
it.
why I
This
love
map
this
is
map.
crazy.
I'm always dead first in this map.
No, I'm not gonna let you.
I'm not doing
I ran
good
out
with
of
this
stamina.
map.
Oh, mistakes.
Damn, who's in
You're
that
not doing
bomb
good at all.
mile?
Man.
This map is hard.
This map is the worst.
My favorite one, though.
Is
that's
it?
bomb.
I have it.
Yes, this is one bomb.
No.
Because of the bombs. That's it. You
Oh.
could give me any other map with this number of bombs, and I'd be happy.
I like the anti-gravity
Oh,
one.
hey.
That one's
My
fun.
Hey,
You're
what the hell
going
is that
down
for?
with me.
Red was all the way up there. One fish. God, for the most part.
Fine, I'll go back.
Oh, Red
It's
survived.
crazy.
Of course I survived. I know this map too well. Hey, Giga. Hi. I hate this map.
It's the best map ever.
It's
Oh,
now.
jeez.
But I'm not forklift certified to be in this map.
Bro.
Oh, that was a good shot.
I'm not allowed to operate heavy machinery.
Yeah. Me neither.
Okay, sure, yeah.
In fact, I should not be allowed next to it. Look at this bomb throw. Look at this bomb throw. Boom! Ooh!
Look at Giga's just being a gamer right now.
I'm not even
He's
sure
like,
what this is yet.
he's like rolling and throwing and tumbling and getting out of the way of shit.
I am level 58 on this game, so.
That's crazy.
Somebody knock it. Don't throw it at me. He's. Throw it at the guy with the wings. What are you people?
Listen, I can't aim!
Listen, I hold grudges.
You killed me in the first round. I was going revenge. What do you mean a grudge?
I don't remember killing you.
It ain't my fault. I cannot aim.
Right?
Nope, this might be the end. This is the end.
Yep.
I don't know how to aim. Oh, this is the end. My friend, the end.
Oh, I just heard Giga die.
I go out on my turn.
But I was gonna say, if you won that after you like hoofed yourself up there like an extra jump for a last second ditch type of win, that was.
Oh no!
Oh my god. Oh my.
Cheat.
Oh no.
Cheat out.
No!
Cheat.
I did it! Oh, I didn't die first.
God, the object of this game is just get away from Giga.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna do
Oh
something
my
a little
god!
bit different.
No! 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 Ah!
Although that would be
the worst.
No, why did you do that? Why?
This is the
No,
worst.
come on, move.
Sorry, just scratched my butt a little bit.
Oh, I'm better than.
That's what I get. That's what I get. I
I
deserve
know.
that. I deserve
You
that.
know, throwing
I
me over
deserve
here
that.
doesn't kill me.
Oh,
Oh, Mac.
But I'm fluffy.
You are fluffy.
Hello, I have a bomb.
I'm not standing on that. That's a mistake.
Oh my god.
oh, I'm gone this time. Wake up, big man. Wake up, big man. Oh, I'm gone.
Roll! Jump! Ow.
Okay, I can now relax.
There's always a fish. I may be a cat, but I know what fish.
Was it you I got with the fish on the submarine that one time we played?
Yes, that was me that you laughed maniacally for 30 minutes after.
Oh no.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
no, Rob! Run!
I can't see anything because of the depth of field.
Just gotta live. Just gotta live.
Hey, let's talk about that gun. No, not that gun. Hey.
Oh.
Hey. That guy's got an ice gun. He got an ice gun. He's crazy.
Get him, Rob! Get him!
That's what that does.
I just. Oh,
There you go.
Farewell, Red. You will be
No.
remembered.
I'm
Here,
not
have
dead.
a
No!
right at the end.
friend. Here, have a fish. We'll throw a fish down there for you.
In case you wake up and get hungry.
What?
I have a bomb.
Back at him. Good.
Oh, that was a terrible throw. I didn't know how long the bomb.
Ow! I was having fun. Why you blow me up?
Bum, 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 bum.
Oh god.
No! Oh wow, that exploded quick.
I think as soon as you actually like throw the bomb, it has a much reduced time. Oh no, I've messed up my recovery. Maybe this is nope.
I know. Sorry,
I'm
man.
pushing you.
I just walked all over you. I'm so sorry.
As long as I can roll, I can.
Ouch,
Maybe not.
I just got hit in the spine by a bunny rabbit.
No.
Put it down.
Stop shooting.
down.
I ran out of bullets.
Well, I tried to roll over you. That's more of a climb, but whatever. Oh. Nope, give me the bomb. Thank you. Catch.
I know, I slipped.
Oh god.
Yeesh. Car. Yes. No, I went on the car. Way back. Fuck off.
Oh no.
No, my car. How?
Oh.
In what world?
No, he's invisible. Oh shoot!
Big word.
Oh no. I'm gonna die. No. Oh no, Max, save me.
I tried to kill you. That's what I
No,
get.
No,
That's what I
no.
get.
It's okay, I died anyway.
Wow, I just threw myself.
Terrible
Oh, this is
person to
gonna
die
suck.
Oh.
Yep, I'm
Giga.
dead. I'm dead. I'm alive. I'm dead.
Oh no.
Bomb
Oh
boulder.
no. Oh no. 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 No.
Spacebar, spacebar, spacebar.
Bro, you got this. You got this.
I'm just gonna stay up here. Hey, not throwing fish at me. He's got 2 wins. Jesus, go for the other guy.
No, we want to get off the map.
Meaning.
There we are.
Meow, meow, meow. Oh, he's on fire.
Meaning.
Oh no. I'm out.
no.
No way. There's no way. There's no way.
I found the experience.
I almost got you again with the fish.
I
Back in.
swear.
Poop.
Hold on, hold on. Oh, ow.
Put me down. Here, express lane for you.
Come
Oh, God.
on.
Butt scratch.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
I got a
There we are.
poopy.
You got a poopy.
I got a poopy. Poopy. I hit Giga with my poopy.
Ow. I was just trying to vibe and look at you, poopy.
Oh no.
I'll grab the poopy.
Ah!
Use
No!
it.
No! 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 No!
How do you use it? Square?
You just yeah.
No! I'm in
yeah,
it. Okay, I can't make
I'm
it.
next button.
When I get stuck on those side ones, there's just no way coming back.
Yeah, I'm on
This is-
PlayStation.
This is the silliest battle I've ever watched. Well,
No, dang it. Could you just died once?
Giga just keeps waking up like instantly.
You have to
See me
smash the
rolling.
button. You have to smash the button and you wake up faster.
Oh yes. Back off. I got stupid shit to do. Oh wait.
Oh,
You're
I
you
blew up.
blocked you from blowing up off there.
Ah!
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no!
Ow.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Not sorry, but sorry.
Oh no!
I'm just gonna run around and do that.
Oh, I ran off the edge again. Ouch, I just knocked myself off the edge.
Wait, man.
Yep, I'm unconscious.
Yeah.
Wake up, big man. Wake up, wait. Smell the roses. Wow. That was an excellent. I'm
Giga,
dead.
I see your body. You landed on a platform outside the map. I just see you sitting there.
What are you guys doing over there? You guys want to
Hey,
come?
that's my, that's my car.
No, I'm gonna die! No! 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 I can't get back up! What's happening?
No.
I can't.
Car time.
Son of a bitch!
Little leg shark.
My little legs don't climb
You gotta
good.
stay there, watch out. Oh, that works.
Man, the power of electricity is kind
Oh,
of
that car's gonna be
boring.
now. What the heck?
No,
I
I'm out.
know, Rob!
Gonzo.
Hey. Hi, guys. Get off my car.
Oh, I'm in the car.
You are so safe, though, I think.
Mac, are you
Right?
That car is not going anywhere.
Oh, Mac.
Nope,
Mac.
it's taking you down. You're gone.
Yep.
Did you
I
guys
just took myself out.
Yeah! Oh no! Ah. Still in this. And I'm still in this. Yeah.
Wow, that was quite the flip you just did.
Thank you. Oh, hell no. No, I am close again.
Hell no.
No, what am I? I'm stuck on nothing.
You're stuck on the board.
And so the run for survival begins.
Playing Temple Run over here.
Right?
I definitely had.
Oh my
A
god.
domestic house cat versus a vicious predator.
Get the bananas away from me.
Yeah, that's good cardio right there.
Oh, it's going so quick. Oh my god, wait.
Oh no!
I don't even know.
What was that?
Oh, Wayback got it!
That was close.
There's so many bananas
Lord.
thrown at me. What the hell?
Clear.
You
I want
abused.
it.
No,
Give
I
me
want
me.
it. It's
No,
mine.
I want you. Give
No.
me. Give me.
No, this
No, I just
feel
got
Dad,
it.
crazy
I want it.
work.
No.
I want the gun.
No, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. No, I can't get up there. I can't get up there.
It's bomb.
Boom, dodge that.
I don't know how to get off the side ones. I die every time.
Oh,
You have to,
that just did us in.
Jump.
I don't know how that's gonna go. I need to avoid that.
Oh, jump and dive. That's a good idea.
But you gotta dive like backwards a little bit, so you like it.
Mac,
gotta-
get out from under the vehicles.
I can't help it. I'm a dog.
I know.
Help,
Give me something fun.
They just want the tires.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Wiggle butt out there.
Chew toy.
They see me
No,
rolling.
wait.
They hate it.
Oh no, Rob!
Oh, there goes a bomb.
The headbutt did me so dirty.
Okay.
Hey. Hey. Hey, hey.
You guys are crazy. What was that noise?
Boy.
Oh, I was
Is my
sniped
pride.
by
That
it.
works.
Must be.
What the hell? What? Why would it lead you?
Bitch.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You want
I saw that
Ah.
coming a mile away.
now.
The car, you're done.
No.
Now.
Damn you! Damn you to hell!
Have some banana.
Oh, almost had him. Now I know the speed. Now I know the speed at which to hit Giga with fish.
Okay. No, drop the gun. I don't need it.
Keep running away, Matt.
Tuck and roll, tuck and
May have
roll.
interest you in
Bad.
no.
I am out of stamina.
No.
Yeah.
Ba-ding.
Ding.
All I had to do was do the rolls.
We're going out together, everybody.
See if I run back.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh,
This is punishment
Hey, what
for
the
that.
heck?
Oh no.
I'm back.
spin to win.
Oh.
Dear poor little buddy.
No, no.
Oh no!
No, no. No. No, 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 no. Oh no, I just woke up. No,
sorry.
no, no.
Live, G, live.
I'm trying. It's not working.
I just did the cartoon.
I knocked myself out.
Baby, roll it.
Oh my hat! I hit your hat.
This is bullshit. I'm under the cart.
There you go. Get out, go on, you're free now.
I know. You don't want to
Thank
blow
God.
up?
Where am I going?
You get up.
Jumping. Boom.
I'm being chased with a cat with a stick. Well, that's gonna hurt.
Dodge. Dark Souls.
I'll blow us both up, Red. I don't care.
Oh no, wham it! No, Rob, no!
Stamina.
Oh no!
Ow. Damn it.
Hi, G.
Hello.
Hi, G.
Bye.
Oh, that's gonna hurt.
Oh, shit.
I'm dead.
That was a good one.
I don't know who that hit.
Stop it, Red.
I can't see because of the whole depth of field thing.
Oh, makes it hard.
I mean, it's like real life, right? I can't see far.
Same. Same. Oh no.
It's literally just like I see in real life.
Oh, no. Oh, God, no.
Oh no,
I'm under the
Red's
car.
turn.
I'm avoiding the car.
No.
Killed me last time.
Oh no! No, it got past! No!
I did a flip.
I'm not.
Oh, that's bad for me. Oh no.
Yeah, usually throw it behind you. That's usually a little more effective.
Hey.
Yeah, it didn't work for me.
Boom!
Oh man.
Hey.
Motion blur off. Depth of field off.
Hey. Yeah, it's heavy.
Red wins.
No.
What is
Wow.
I was so focused on just trying to stay up. I couldn't look at where.
At least I tried.
Oh. To my ground. Yay. Ow.
I just knock out two people with one punch.
Damn!
Get down, Lindette.
The back of my head.
Throw her around.
Oh, I
broke
can
down
like
the whole
infinitely.
thing.
That's great.
Oh, the
You just
airplane.
spam.
Just watching them get yeeted.
Now, if you want to know my worst map, this is it. I will
This?
throw myself
Yeah.
off. No, Red, down.
Same.
Oh, it's
Now
bad.
you said it.
Oh shit. Okay, you know what? Truce. This map scares me now. Psych.
Oh no!
Don't worry, Mac, I got you.
Into the turbines.
I'm running away. I'm
Don't worry, Mac, I got you. I know. No, me and Mac were buddies. Why would you hit me? No, Mac.
I died with a plunger in my butt.
Ow.
Wow.
Die like you live.
With a plunger in the butt.
Ah, shit! Hey, damn! Damn! I got hit!
Tell me what you're gonna do now. Roll and roll.
Damn it.
Yes!
Yay, I win. Yeah.
Good one, Chi.
Bat.
Rolling.
Hey, you're not a bat. Wait, why is my fist in your face?
Let go of me.
Why is my hand in your mouth?
Throw the pin away. Oh, that's a bomb.
Hey, whoa, whoa,
No!
whoa!
No! I blowed up.
Holy cow.
Oh,
Easy win, Mac. Easy dubs.
I didn't even do nothing. Oh, hey, I just saw someone fly up the
I
plane.
went so quick off.
Stop it!
Ow, ow, my head!
Hey, I'm sorry. I like to confess my sins.
No!
Need to get my
Throws her
back.
into the propeller.
One step.
Oh, damn it. You just whipped around. Don't get up. Let go of me. Taking you with me, you son of a bitch. I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go. I'm taking your ass with me.
Mac got the win. Let's go.
I think I would have that situation.
I
very
may have
much,
lost, but at least I didn't lose alone.
Oh, okay. Well, there goes that boomerang.
She has a
Okay, man.
taser.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's not nice. Yo, nice nunchuck moves.
Oh crap! No. Oh. Thank God the refueling was on but taking.
Wait, how do you
I
do
know! I was
do-
flying!
I'm
What
gonna
the
do
hell
this.
is that going by? Hey,
I'm gonna do my
hey,
piss.
hey. I don't like that.
No taser red.
Pardon me.
The bump slide! That's crazy!
Hey. Meow. Okay, you two are silly gooses, apparently.
Crap! Someone went invisible.
Nice.
No.
It's red.
No.
Where's the invisible red?
No, one invisible. That'd be silly. It's ridiculous. Don't be
Yeah,
ridiculous.
bullshit. I don't believe you, red.
No, it's right. It's silly.
I'm not invisible.
There he is. What?
Yes. Thank you for
so happy
saving
you
my
got
blood.
Oh no!
Oh,
Get
they
him.
drop kick.
No.
Nice!
Oh, wait.
Good job,
You
Mac.
wham that knockout Gablingus and still look for me invisible.
No! Run away!
How about that?
Oh god.
How about that for
He's
complaining?
got a lollipop
no,
run!
Rolling.
I don't know who got knocked out there. Oh, he got
Well.
no.
For anybody who's
Like,
listening, I'm sorry if I'm blasting your ears.
No.
Oh, hey, I'm not going for you. I'm not going for you.
No!
Peace. Am I?
Well, apparently I ran out of stamina and killed myself. So,
Oh, no!
you know, all in this way.
Yeah, I think we take her out.
No!
Yes.
Ah, what the hell?
Let's go, bump!
I'm stuck.
Oh no!
I slipped on a banana. Are you shitting me? Oh my god.
Get him. You're welcome for the banana, red.
You went me.
No.
Oops.
And then I roll in. No.
She got pooped.
Ah, crap. Someone's got I just saw someone take the
Ow.
invisibility potion.
Hey.
And then
Well,
rolling.
found him.
That's crazy.
Meow! Oh
That's
no!
such a
That was
good
to me!
punch.
No!
Yeah. No. Grab.
Get away with it. He just wiped out half the people. Yeah, that's all I
Are you kidding me?
Flag. Yeah.
Hey, I heard this was GhigaV's worst map.
It is.
As he just eliminated it in record time.
Jesus.
Jump.
Ouch.
Okay.
Shovel.
Oh, I just jumped.
Don't go that way,
Jumped.
Red.
I don't want to go that way. She's over there. She's over there. Right. She's on the other side.
I can't get over the lump with the shovel. It's too heavy.
Oh, hi, Mac. Jeez.
Gee, that was a
Can I borrow
great.
this? Can I borrow the
Mac, you
car?
should
Can I
use
borrow the
it.
shovel?
No.
Oh,
Oh, no.
handle.
Ah! No!
Can't
No,
go.
Mom!
The bomb.
Oh no, Red's gonna be zoomy.
That doesn't really work to
Oh, God.
his favor in this map.
I beg to differ. Oh.
I'm stuck! No! Damn it! No! thrown overboard.
Oh my
He's
god,
right
the
in
kick!
the
The kick
airborne.
was immaculate! Oh, that was such a good kick.
That used to be Giga's specialty. It was the kick.
All right, I gotta
Sorry,
be
Mac.
Mac. I'm like the only one here who hasn't
Okay,
gotten
well,
to come in.
damn it.
This map is kind of ass, not gonna lie.
Oh, it's. Oh no! I'm done. Yeah, this
Oh,
is one
no.
of the roughest maps in my book.
Boomerang!
Don't punch me! Don't punch me!
Oh.
Let me be frozen in peace!
Oh, hey, Wambat, I didn't know you were there with an ice gun. That's very unfortunate for me.
Come on, damn it! No! Damn it,
Oh!
the only game I think I did win one damn game.
Very good round.
It was. Oh god! No!
Okay. Ah!
Okay, red's gone.
Hey!
I don't know what happened.
I'm like standing up you, and you let me pick you up.
Gee,
What, when you had the ice gun in your hand? The ice gun.
No!
Oh no!
You got a bump.
No!
You got
no!
voted you.
No!
You
No!
got
No! No! Not the fish!
Mac, I'm sorry.
Banana.
Oh god! Hey, don't let us lead! I want to stand!
Good at this. I can't even fucking pick up anyone.
Wow, I'm absolutely doing terrible.
How did you do that?
Ow! I got hit with a
The
bomb!
bomb knockout! The bomb knockout!
And with a bomb.
Button mashing.
The worst.
My god.
I still want to try to do something.
Ah, no! I rolled off the edge!
Oh, okay.
Nope, so much for that.
Run the other way. Hey. That's what you get.
Nice taste.
I'm not touching
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, come closer, Mac. Come closer, Mac. Yeah.
Don't do it! Don't do it!
I threw myself.
Roll like
Always-
a
always-
Dark Souls.
Oh, no. Okay. Goodbye.
I just need to learn the
Oh
attack
no!
better.
Wambat?
Ah!
The double!
Oh no!
It is down to the final two. Who will take this round?
Oh,
that was
red wins.
red wins.
The speed!
I'm hungry. Buddy cheek.
Last place.
I love that it says defeat. Like,
Alright, I'll be right back. I gotta pee. If I keep laughing, accidents will happen.
Nice.
go,
On my
like
picture.
you did.
On my picture. Hi.
Jake's just knocked out on the ground and back.
Real tired bunny.
Stay away from the black hole and stay alive.
This one is just
Well,
dumb.
I'm not gonna live long.
Me neither.
I generally die on this map.
Easier said than done.
I'm trying to remember
What?
how this map.
What?
I
What
don't know
just
how that
happened?
worked, but okay.
Okay.
How did
I
you
ran
roll
into
me?
you and you went away.
Mac, are you there? Mac,
Hungry.
Mac,
Hungry.
Mac.
I'm doing the hungry emo.
Don't know how to grab. This is a great time to
Let's
learn how
grab.
to grab.
Mac, you gotta grab. Mac, grab my ass.
Right
Grab
trigger
my
if
ass.
you're
That's
on
my hand,
any
that's my
kind
ass.
of
Grabbing your eye.
G.
back up window. Back up window.
I will protect
I
G.
just work
She
here.
said,
I just work here.
she said
I will
she's
protect you.
doing...
You just work here. I'm just a nuclear physicist. Leave me alone.
I had to pee.
I am
back.
I got you,
grabbing onto
G.
this for your
I
life.
got you. I'll keep you safe.
Oh,
I got you safe.
wow. Oh no! Grab something!
Itchy butt. I'll grab this.
No!
Oh my god.
Let
Way
me
back.
drop it.
Grabbing?
Let me drop it. Damn it.
There you go.
I know! I'm
Oh,
flying!
I am
pressing
Oh,
every damn
man.
button.
You will be.
Oh no! That was the worst!
Just me and you now. Way back.
I like how I survived one
just
round
you
of
said
that,
that, and then
doing
you
nothing,
just, like-
and then somehow I died when I came back.
Damn it. You probably floated in the black hole.
Ooh, I have my own gravitational force. Sit down, bunny.
No,
I'm
I
out.
don't wanna.
Who's this?
I wanna run.
Get out of here.
Oh my
Get
god!
out of here. You
Oh
go.
no.
You can't catch this. I'm the fastest man in the world. Mac, Mac,
I'm gonna
here's
grab
the
your
box.
ass, G, but it's
Grab
not
the box.
weird.
Mac,
What
grab
are
the
you
box.
doing?
It's not
Why
weird,
are you-
okay?
Grab the box, Mac.
I just needed
Save
something to
yourself.
hold on to.
Oh, I think my stamina's gonna drop.
Oh my god, I'm dying.
Oh, sorry. USB error.
No,
Fuck.
That's
I
unfortunate.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Save you.
no, just kill me. Just kill me. Just
Oh
kill me.
no, I fell.
I'm out.
I jumped in. Whoops.
I have no controls.
Smack my
Just
head.
kill me, please.
No. Put me down. Woo, I'm alive. I'm dead.
I'll fix it. Don't worry. I know how to fix it. It's happened before.
Oh no.
That's because I'm on Linux.
Ah, what?
That wasn't me, I promise.
I grabbed you, so if you let go, we're both dead.
I think you should let go.
Oh no! It was you.
wait.
How do you know?
You grabbed the fish!
Because I'm on Linux.
Wait, how do you do emotes? I don't know how to do that.
T.
Hey, do I have
T?
do I have controls back?
Oh,
I
hey,
have
wait a
controls
second.
back. Yeah.
When that's invisible. When that's invisible. Everyone watch out.
Oh no! Wait!
Oh no! Wait! No, I was trying to grab the box! No!
I just see Chi floating despite there not being anything. Oh, there's my bed.
Oh, hell no.
No, I'm confused.
How did I survive? How the helly? On goodness, on.
Hi.
Oh.
Man, that was a hell of a sucker punch right there.
You're welcome.
Hold on, I'm punching the air.
No, I don't want to blow up!
No, that's. No, hey, guys,
threw
I'm
a
trying
hammer
to
at
cook
Mac
it off.
to,
Okay.
Knock them out. It just
You
as
wanted to
fun.
share?
No,
We can
Chi.
share.
No, Chi.
Really?
No, Chi.
Really?
Chi. Oh, never mind.
Get me up, come on.
No! Damn! That was crazy!
Grab on, Chi. Grab onto
I
my
think you
feet.
live.
I can't reach! I can't reach!
No, never mind, I lied. I definitely lied.
I fell right into the center.
Can I just like throw stuff in? It was so heavy. Hey.
Ow. Wait, can I grab the railing? I can't.
Really?
I can't grab the railing.
I will share.
Really?
I will share. I offer shares. That's so mean.
I will not share.
Yeah.
Giga doesn't
yeah?
understand.
Yes, you will.
the word
Share.
share.
Oh, okay. Well,
Go!
Oh, wait.
I'm still on. That's how you get it done.
Damn it!
Oh.
Why is it?
What? How did you?
Whenever I did,
Cat
it was
violence.
controller vibration.
Cattle cat violence. Oh hell no.
Get up! Damn it! Get up!
No.
Damn it! What are you fucking get at me? Come on, no!
Damn it. I can die already.
Grab on! Grab
Fuck off,
on!
Red! Fuck off! Yes!
Oh no, you're
You
both
fucking-
screwed!
You get two!
Oh
You
no, who
all-
dies first?
We both go together.
No.
I know, it's neck and neck.
I live.
Oh!
no
How?
Ah,
How did that
I gotta
happen?
fly.
Oh shit, Red.
I'm a
Red.
with
No.
red wings. I can fly. No, I'm just gonna run. Cause,
No!
Oh no! Damn, that's fucked up.
This
Drive
is
by
gravity.
Giga,
Oh.
Giga, I know what your plan is. Giga, you get the fuck up.
Everyone get Red.
No, look, Just because I'm a cat that has sprung wings does not mean I'm a threat. It means I'm a cat with wings.
Uh-oh, Red.
How them wings working right now, bro?
You're a threat and you're gonna go
I'm
bye-bye.
trying. You don't have to grab anything on the first one.
How did I get knocked out by the tail thing?
Got hit in the head
Yeah.
with debris.
No shot. What?
Oh, I got a chance. I got a chance.
No. Why did you wake up so fast and I didn't? What is the point?
I don't know how to use
I am
that.
an excellent button masher.
I beat the shit out of my buttons.
I'm ready.
Or no, Clear!
No, Giga!
I'm sorry.
Come on! No, you're not!
I miss you, little one. Ouch.
No!
Come
Oh,
on.
no!
Hi, Gig.
Oh.
I'm gonna die!
I'm just
I'm gonna die!
No kidding.
Oh, I didn't die! Woo.
I survived.
Bomb.
The straps.
Damn
the
it,
straps.
Lambat! I just survived, damn it! What the hell?
Your
Why do you hate me?
survival was...
That stupid kick is what gets me every time.
I love kicking.
Oh no!
Yep. Oh, 360.
Stop with the fish.
No! Fish you if I want to.
If I explode, I explode. I don't care.
Boom! Oh no!
I'm
Max!
dead.
Just dead center of it.
You got
Yup.
sucked into the black
Yep.
hole.
What if I just like grab onto this?
That's the best one.
I
Oh god!
Wow. Rolled right into Wambat's fist. I knocked myself out.
No! We can share! We can share! Rob!
Wake up then! Wake up
I'm
then!
trying! I'm
I
trying!
got the luggage.
No!
I got the luggage.
Couldn't get it! No!
That's,
I don't know
I think we
what
just gotta like
happened.
chill for a second. The three of us.
Oh, I survived. It's okay.
Jay, you lived. Okay.
Oh, it's because I picked up the dart
have no
instead of
stamina.
the chain. Ow!
Unsure. Ah, why?
Ah, Savannah.
Sucky at.
Brought you this hat.
You got Max hat.
Kill everybody! Kill everybody!
Oh no! We can share! We can share! Whambat! We can share! Damn it! You bully!
Knock me out. Yeah, we shared, didn't we?
You killed me first!
Yeah, right? Like,
You with me, Giga? You're not going anywhere.
Oh no! Oh no! Ow!
Oh god, this is funny.
resuscitation. Resuscitation. Okay.
Okay.
No, Brady.
I know, no,
Chi.
Oh no!
Okay.
Oh,
You
no.
wanna just like call good?
Truce right now. Truce right now. we live
The
together.
only person who shouldn't be trucing is everyone against Red. Red's gonna win it if you don't stop him.
I can't! I can't!
Oh no, I might be gonzo here.
No, my... You might be a little
Cheat!
There we go. Nice shot, Matt.
I can't breathe! Oh my god!
The chain saved me.
Oh, I can't breathe! Oh.
Yeah, the chain's the best one at the end.
Get out of here. I see you.
I did the same
on.
shit. Why did you do better?
Yes.
What?
Damn it.
I don't have enough
No!
time
Oh, damn.
to wake up like fucking Giga does.
No, I don't want that! Giga! Why?
Oh, I've lost all gravity. You're my
No.
flotation device, jeez.
Ow!
Never gonna bring.
Ugh.
Oh,
I'll
fish.
just dive into the railing. You go fish.
Oh, what is that?
Wanna be a
Yeah.
flying alligator? Oh, no, wake up.
What is it?
No
What?
way.
Okay.
Oh, I fell.
I would have called baloney if you got out of that.
No! No!
grab.
Bunch of Vtubers there.
Banana.
No! No,
Yes.
no!
She let go.
That bomb's way
I got hit with something and it broke me away.
Banana.
Oh,
well.
I punched myself to death.
Oh no.
Roll like Dark Souls. Roll like Dark Souls.
Just gotta get to the
He's
chain.
surviving
That's all you
over
have to
there.
do is get to the chain.
Run! Run!
Yeah, get to the chain. You gotta get to the chain.
I got the chain.
No, I'm on you.
Not him.
Oh, clock.
Oh no!
Oh no.
Anything else at this point?
Oh wow.
No, you won. You let fell first.
Yeah, oh, he was you first with the
That's
drop.
crazy.
Wait, how did you win?
Yeah,
What?
You won.
It was clearly second.
Wait, who won?
Move it.
No, you fell before me.
The game, sir. Sir, I was just trying to just enjoy the game.
No!
Sir.
No!
Button mash, button mash, button mash. Punch.
Plunger.
All right, we gotta take out. We gotta take out red, and we gotta take out.
I have the gas.
Okay, you are.
Hey, pull me safe from the gas.
Jeez, you little bunny butt.
No, plunger! I
It
wanted
landed on me.
That's
That's
good for
bullshit.
Mac, we gotta stay survive. They're coming for us, Mac. No, don't go for me, Mac.
Oh, I'm punched.
Gee, it's
Okay.
Mac
You
and
wanna call
red.
Juice? I'll call Juice.
I don't care.
No, what?
Wait, but not be calling him cruises around here.
Ow!
Violence is the answer.
There's no truce for
No.
red or Mac. They're going to win if
yeah.
either one of them.
I don't care who wins. No! Rob!
No,
Damn it!
I'm not gonna win. I'm not gonna win. Yeah, I lost.
Oh no!
I know, I can't get a
gas
hold of
don't
anything!
got me.
No, I got Rob!
Wait a minute.
We're going down!
We're going down.
No, my gas
Oh,
tank.
what? Every
Oh,
time,
no,
that's like
Mac.
the third bomb to knock me out. What the fuck, man?
I got
This
betrayed by my
is
own
all
gas
you.
tank.
Do this. Over the box thing. Get some canisters. Oh. Yo, what? That's bomb. Yes.
Oh.
What?
Get off me! I'm stuck.
Country road.
Yes.
Take wham back.
The
Fucking
fish
throw a
left.
fish at me. Ah, it's a fish. Yeah.
Somehow you were able to dodge all the fish coming at you.
That was hard.
So many
There's
fish.
too much.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's one of my favorite maps, though.
That is a great
That was
map.
Good job, Red.
Thank you, thank you. Oh,
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Ow. Hey,
To the front.
When you be facing the camera, guys,
my butt.
I'm being elevated. What the hell?
With a spittle in the air.
It looks like I'm picking up Giga like we're on the front of the Titanic.
Oh, yeah, jeez, what the heck?
Oh, have fun.
Never let go, Giga.
I don't trust you to
Come
hold on
over.
to me.
There's room in the door for two.
Very different Titanic story whenever I just throw her overboard.
Oh no, the submarine!
I wanted the
What
shovel.
the
I'm sorry.
heck?
I'm sorry. I just wanted the shovel.
Ouch.
Doing
Not
it,
sorry about
Corey.
that one.
Alright.
Definitely not sorry
Get
about
back.
that one.
There we go.
Oh, no.
Oh, my
Chilling.
God.
Oh, no, we're not being chilling.
Forgot
We're
about
being
that.
chilling now, yes.
No, don't do it. Don't you dare.
Go in there. Go with a shot. Excuse me, pardon me, going through. We're gonna go. I got shit to do.
Oh, that's gonna be great.
Oh no!
What the hell?
The uppercut was
What you doing?
crazy.
No, I was scratching my butt. Ooh, 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 ooh.
Hey, Giga.
Wait. No. I want to grab this. I
No.
want to grab the rocket.
I see what you're doing up here, G.
I like it up here.
No.
Leave me alone. Oh no! No!
Oh.
No! 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 I don't want to swim.
Yeah, that's fine. wrong about getting up there too early. The rockets will blow you off.
Oh, how did that knock me out?
Stop!
Oh, I think I'm gone.
Wait a minute.
Keep swimming. Guys, keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Oh, I'm toast.
Get up right there.
Rob! Dare! God damn it!
I was here the whole time.
Damn it, Red.
Crazy! That is crazy!
Wait, where was he?
Don't you killed us both. You killed us both, Red. I'm taking you.
We're all in the water currently.
No.
Jeez!
I think I win. Yeah.
How did you not drown?
I'm a
It was
good
the
swimmer.
lobster round. That was the answer.
He's got him this. The thing has got him this. GhigaV Mac. Hey, Chi.
Rocket.
Hiding from the rocket.
Whee!
No!
Valid.
No! No!
I'm going.
No! No! No!
How'd I get hit by something?
No!
Kabingus is
invisible. Yes.
No, I'm leaving you. I see you, Giga. Go away. I want to do the funny. Hold on, I want to do the funny. Oh.
Oh.
Okay, bye.
Back on.
Space dog.
Damn it! I'm trying to do the funny thing.
I'm space dog.
You're doing it.
Dog in space.
Excuse me.
I was trying to
I'm
headbang
trying not
some
to be
music.
here. I just wanna.
God, so it's
don't mind
fish.
me. Sorry. Don't mind me. Don't mind me. I was trying to do the funny thing.
I was trying to get up there
Stop
too.
getting
Oh my god, that's so far.
Climb, big man, climb.
No.
Get out of my way.
Wait, I drowned already?
There's a turbine there, and if you get sucked into the front of the turbine, it will kill you instantly.
Oh.
Come on. Get your furry butt up there.
I know.
Oh, I think I jumped too far. I'm dead.
Wambat, what are you doing?
I'm still alive.
I believe in Wambat. I'm not gonna go official Wambat. Damn.
Oh,
I'm
you
trapped.
guys got lucky that my fish didn't
I'm
get
trapped.
it.
Fish.
Fish!
I know.
Better you swimming with the fishes.
Damn it.
Can't
That
get
was
knocked
mean.
down here.
I'm sleeping with the fishes.
Oh man. Too funny.
Oh, they're stuck. Oh, hell no, I ain't. No, I'm leaving. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, guys. Why are you shooting at me? Now that's something.
Ah! Ow. You got hurt.
You
I know.
spin me right round me, right round.
Oh no, rockets.
Oh.
Oh no,
Rocket.
Giga's got the nunchucks.
Oh, I think I took myself out with them.
Yeah.
They go me.
There's an arrow in my neck.
Ow. Ah, it's narrow my arse.
Okay, bye.
It didn't work.
Oh,
I'm trying to figure out the button that lets it go.
The double
How
tap.
do we let it go?
Are you on console or not
I'm on
console? You controller.
Square.
I thought it was just double tap the trigger. You
That just shoots.
Oh.
Oh no!
Finchy.
No! I was up there too!
Oh, I'm
Dang
dead.
it! It was such a good clip.
I'm the captain of this ship now.
Look at me. I'm the
I
You
am
can
the
be
captain.
captain. I just want to go up
I
there.
don't know what I did. I just spam hit all the buttons.
No!
and
I'm
finally
trying to get up
got
there!
it.
Damn
I'm
it!
the captain of this ship.
Have a captain fish.
Well,
Have a fish, captain. Whatever I just said.
We can all be up here. We can all be up here.
Ow.
we can all bundle.
You know the best part of this particular setup, right?
Hey. Hey.
Bomb.
Yep. Right there.
Oh
Perfect.
no! Oh no! Oh, we're good.
Why am I on top?
You prefer to be a bottom?
That's not. No.
No.
Hey. Bye.
You?
Drown already. Drown already, you dumb cat. No, wait, why
You
did I
drown
go
first, asshole.
Why did I go down so fast?
Oh my god.
Oh no, somebody's in Viz.
What? No, that's
press
crazy.
the wrong button. Okay.
No, now I'm invisible fast.
Stupid arrows.
Or
Ow!
at least I drop it when I get knocked out.
Yeah, you do.
So,
Oh, I'm so fast.
Ow! Ow! I'm so floppy.
Hi,
Uh-oh,
Chi.
Mac's
Hi,
got a
Chi.
nice gun.
Red, why?
I'm sorry.
Why?
I don't-
Why?
Hey, you always- oh my god, I feel
Why?
horrible
Why?
now. Oh my god.
Why?
Oh,
Did you throw her in the blender?
no, I
me
just
in
threw her
the
in the water, but I
water.
feel bad about it now.
You should. God
Can you
damn
let
it.
go
Oh,
of
I'm
my
dead. I'm
toesies
dead.
for once?
I'm dead. Oh, hey, I'm not dead.
Hey, let me...
let me climb. Wait.
Damn it!
Sorry, Wambat.
No, no, Giga, you.
Go
No,
into the blender.
no,
Into the blender. Oh no.
Oh,
Come on.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
We can talk about this. Hi.
It has been discussed.
What? Hello? Hello? Hello?
You
That
slipped
was
on
my
the
chance and I just was like stuck on air?
You
What was
slipped
that?
on the banana peel. It was a banana
Oh.
I go down with the ship. I go down hungry.
Ow.
peel. Go down hungry.
I can't move in this area.
I know, right?
Oh
Butt
no.
scratch. I'm dead.
Why?
Works.
I'm coming.
We'll take that. We're gonna...
Oh gosh.
Well, look out, well, look out, well, look out. You go once and I know it
Oh
does.
no. Sorry, Matt. I meant to pick up this.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, we gotta
Anyway,
run.
let's
Run
get
away,
rid of
run
you.
away, run away, run away, run away.
You're ready.
Ah!
Nope. I'm not getting got.
I just insta-killed Red.
Help.
The bomb.
I know. I ran out of bullets.
Oh god.
No.
You'll go the way of the Red as well.
No. No.
Although Red actually went through the turbines, you at least
Oh,
avoided that.
that's graphic.
Oh yeah, it like fucking kills him.
A lot of pieces now.
Oh, I missed.
It's just so funny.
Fish. Fish.
Fish.
There's so many fish.
Go me, Giga.
Oh, I think this
Fish.
is right here,
Oh my
way better.
god.
So much fish.
That's almost a fish.
Almost a fish. It's a banana. Banana.
not
You go where you go.
I just decided to walk.
Oh.
I'm done.
You go where you go.
No,
Fish. No, Giga.
No, it's so far.
now I just got jumped on y'all.
Oh man, at him.
Banana.
I'm stuck. Getting stuck by
Banana. Banana.
I believe it's banana.
Hey, I want to play the boomerang.
Apples and bananas. Oh.
Oh no, you got the boomerang. Watch out,
The
Giga.
boomerang. Oh, sorry, Wambat got in the way. I'll throw it at you again.
No, Red.
Oh, I go. Oh.
Hey, I want to play with boomerang.
Here,
Oh,
bunny,
God.
bunny, bunny.
No,
Oh
no,
my
no,
God.
no, 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 no. Giga! Why?
You wanna see how boomerang works? Let me show you.
Terrible.
Ah, shit.
I actually don't know how the boomerang works.
And that's how the boomerang works.
Show you knocks himself out.
That's exactly how it works. That's why no one uses it.
No, damn it! It was so close.
Oh, I just jumped over.
Hey, hey.
Fish.
Okay, good job, Mac. Nobody likes invisible people. Yeah.
Don't put me up. Don't have me troll like that here and now. The fin on the sub.
So dumb. That's so dumb.
Damn it, Dick.
Oh, I did a full jump over that.
Take it.
Yeah.
Oh no, Rob, get
Oh
him!
no.
No! That was so close. It was so close.
Oh, just threw myself off.
Oh no! Oh no!
You win.
Good try.
Now, if I can just get your body off of this thing, just get off. No, why is this so much easier for
Yeah.
you? I'm not dead yet, fool. Here, puppy dog, go swim.
No.
Call it the doggy paddle. Somebody come get her. She's dancing like a stripper.
I was trying to get up there so many times. I keep getting murdered before I get up there.
Oh god.
Get away, Red.
Oh god.
See you later.
Oh no! What?
We have that distraction.
Help! Help! Help!
Sorry.
No way back.
No, I need to
Get
go
that thing
spin.
away from
I
me.
need to go spin.
It's your time to go.
Careful, Mac, don't get blown away.
I don't have a tail for a reason. Oh, is this the
Don't
end
worry,
of me?
I spin.
Now I have a tail. I'm just like you. You're just like me. Anyone else knows where that song is from? You do not.
I do.
I do know it, though.
I do, but I don't remember.
Yeah, right.
Barbie movie.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now.
Good job. Princess of the
Because
Papa, to be exact.
I defy some gravity. No, but I was grabbing, brother.
Oh, my nemesis is down here.
Hey, got me.
I want to spin.
Your nemesis? You got a shit-ass nemesis.
Yes.
The nemesis.
It's memorable. I kicked him in the face. My nemesis.
I can't get it. I want to spin.
Guys, chill. Oh, that might be it for me. Oh, can you climb, baby?
Is it for you for sure?
The sun doesn't set for bunny rabbit.
No, I want to go spin. Leave me alone. No, I can't get it. Can't get up
No,
there.
Red, damn it!
I'm absolutely failing at this. This is the hardest like
No.
map area.
No, no,
Oh, am I alive still? I am.
no, no, I was so
Get him,
close.
get him.
I was so close to
come on.
spinnies.
Just hold in there and see who lasts long. Yeah, all you have to do is hang on to it.
I'm gone. Reds.
Somebody come get her.
She's ah! Oh my god,
So close.
it's crazy.
I'd rate that about a
Thank you.
6 or
Thank you.
7.
Thank you. Good game. Thank you. Thank you. Ow.
Ow, my butt.
Oh, wow.
It is your butt.
Horrifying blur.
Oh, this one. I still don't know how to feel about this, man.
This one's the worst.
I've seen silliness on this map.
This is where friendships are ruined.
I yawned.
It really is.
Oh,
It really
no.
shows you who you can trust and not trust.
Did Giga just roll off to start?
Yeah, I'm still alive. It's fine.
Ah,
Don't break the handles
Red.
before it gets there, guys.
No.
Find your way up. Find your way up, Sticky.
Don't break it.
Oh,
Ah,
damn it,
no.
no! We're back. Giga, interestingly, likes you. Giga, why?
You shouldn't.
No. Looks like it. Guys, pull the. Keep the lever there. Keep the lever there.
No, what are you doing?
That's meant to be that. Goddamn. Okay, fish.
Stop! No! Damn it.
Put it down, Jake.
Shit, she got a shovel. Oh, she got a shovel.
No!
Finish.
Oh no! No! No, Giga! Why do you hate me?
Yeah.
You gonna find me while I'm holding this up? Alright, fine.
That's a predicament.
Did it work? Did it work? Did it work? Oh,
No.
I'm trying to use the bomb to kill me.
That was insane.
See, that bomb actually made you win.
Mine. No. Pick it up. Mine. I have gun.
Pick it up.
No, leave me alone. I want gun.
Ow!
Gun.
No! Leave me alone, Wombat!
Gee.
Up. No. You made it. Get back up.
Stay this up.
How did we get blown away?
Oh no! No!
Right up.
Giga!
You get to live today, G.
Oh, please.
I wonder.
Oh no!
No, wait. Let me up. What am I doing?
That's so many bombs.
No!
We're gonna... I trust cheese more anyway.
Oh no, it's gonna break!
Keep pulling.
Oh, I ran out of stamina.
Oh my god.
Oh no!
Predicament fish. If mom were
Ah!
Wow, my stamina's full.
Yo! Get him off!
No! I tried! No!
Oh, one person!
That was me!
Okay. Every time. Hey, no.
I tried.
Go, grab it! Grab it! Why are you not grabbing it? You silly little kitty cat!
Oh no! I almost made it! I almost made it! No! I almost made it back up there! I was hanging onto the side for dear life.
Oh god.
What's going down here? It's just safer
Ah.
down here. I'm
No! No!
Oh.
No! God damn it! Giga!
Not all the way down there.
Fell all the way under the
Hey.
platform.
That was so mean!
Oh,
Well, this gives me time to change.
Grab it, when I grab it, I'll pull your butt, you
Trying
pull the
to.
lever.
okay. You're back. Back here. Lock the door.
Wait. Oh, no, it didn't work.
It did not work.
What? Okay, sure.
Somehow that fish went right under your feet, Giga.
No, Giga. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, no, be that guy.
I'm
Get him.
stuck underneath this. Okay, what?
Pull. Wait, oh!
Whatever.
No.
You let me, you son of a bitch.
Oh no, it's gonna break!
Alright.
Oh no, spinach! Sounds like the
Okay, I
little
gotta
guys
land it
from
first.
Jackbox games.
Use the bat. Beat him up.
Oh no.
Never mind. The bat had no use. The bat, it did nothing.
What the fuck? Near the bomb. Oh shit.
You're too strong, Red Hoodie.
I tried so hard.
You did. You tried really hard.
And so far, but in the end.
It didn't even
Yeah,
matter.
it didn't matter.
It's gonna go
Oh, no.
away from Giga. Giga, please.
Get back here.
We can talk about this.
Doesn't matter if I win anymore. It's if you lose.
Oh,
I did it! I got back up.
Yeah,
Roll.
yeah, I can play this. MVP.
I'm learning the.
Oh no.
Hi. You know what that me down.
Red! What are you doing?
Ouch! I didn't knock you out. The fish knocked you out.
Oh, my
Giga,
bad.
okay,
My
Giga.
bad. My bad. My bad.
Oh my god.
Don't worry, you're not dead.
I want to see. I feel like you can, like. Nope.
Get off my feet, sucker! Ugh. Damn it!
Yeah. Oh.
I know. No, 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 no,
Oh, it's
no,
going
no,
down.
no,
It's going
no,
down.
no.
It's going down again.
Damn, where'd that bomb come from?
Ow.
That's crazy.
No, it's gonna break! No! No! My dead limb body flew away! Let's go, Mac!
No.
Get him!
Throw. I can't throw. I can't do anything.
He's
I don't
holding
have
onto the
any-
platform.
No.
I know! Good try.
Following you for good measure.
Those 3 bombs on one.
Ah.
I am safe from the Giga Wrath over here.
Ah, no! No! No, 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 no! Get away from me. I don't want to be electrocuted. Go away.
Dark Souls.
Oh shit. Okay. Okay. Well. Sure.
Don't do it, Wimbat! Damn it.
Y'all having a shockingly good time over there?
Yes.
Yeah, get rid of that stupid thing.
Yep. I didn't even use that. I just pointed it at myself. Bomb.
Oh man.
I got hit by. Oh, I got bombed.
Bomb saved.
Why does this
Yeah, man.
point have 8 viewpoints on it?
I got no dome. No.
Hey, man.
No,
You like that?
Yes. It's funny.
Gee, you're too strong.
I guess so.
Don't worry, guys. It'll never break.
We lived because they held the door open.
That's true.
Wow, I've not been able to punch anything on this
No!
map.
Wimbat!
Yeah, I'm really
Damn it!
struggling.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm definitely.
Dude, it hit you. I just grazed you off.
Yes, but I'm uncoordinated and floppy.
I know. I'm terrible.
Yeah, no. I'm just gonna randomly swing my normal arm attack and see.
No! Damn it! Get
Go Wimbat.
Why?
Go Wimbat. We're going on a walk, kitty cat. We're going on
No,
a
we're
walk.
not. You guys can go.
Oh man.
Oh, let's go!
Broke.
Let's go.
Kabling is on the scoreboard.
Yeah, you know what? Excuse me. Can I
Dark Souls.
No, ow, never mind.
No.
Oh, sorry, Red.
I somehow slid off.
Oh God, it's crazy.
Hi.
Red, wait.
Hello.
Oh no.
Oh, I got myself.
Four friends.
That happens a lot with the
Nunchucks are like the
nunchucks.
boomerang.
No, we're gonna blow up.
I'm gonna go on this side, respectfully.
I'm gonna blow up.
You'll be fine. Make sure.
Fuck. I'm getting stuck in the door.
No. Ah.
There's no shot.
Wow.
It's okay, Giga. You needed it.
Damn, Mom.
Dark Souls.
How am I
My
out?
vengeance is here.
Yo,
Wow, I can't pick up anything.
save you.
You get to live.
Ah, no.
I would say.
Smash, smash, smash.
Don't save him.
I did save him.
Oh, I'm gonna break this.
Oh.
Control.
Giga. Oh no, we're gonna explode.
You put it right back. You put it right back.
I dropped it. I
Moment of peace, bro.
Too good.
Moment of peace.
Oh, 7 in the chat.
Really?
6, 7 in the chat.
Why are you guys standing there?
Oh, no way.
Beef like a crit.
No!
Oh, red.
Wild.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I think
gosh.
he hit me on the way by and I went out.
I thought you hit me.
It's too good.
I couldn't tell
That's
who
killing
it was. No, well, it's only
Oh,
because
wow.
I put Windows in my stream title.
Oh, what is my
Oh, that looked
dude
good.
doing?
Damn,
Okay.
Gabling is
Giga's in the-
I'm strutting.
You
I'm
are.
strutting.
You are.
Check that out.
Giga's in the back like, wee!
Oh, this is my most
Oh,
evil
no.
map.
I
Oh,
hate this map. We should have blocked this map.
Dude, I always
wow.
win this.
This one
I'm
is
so
so
evil.
hard. I hate this one so much. Oh, this one's the worst.
Ow, I just wanted peace. I don't want violence.
I know.
Okay, with that. I just want
I
peace.
died already.
Let me throw him off this time.
No, wow, that was so...
And Dark Souls. And Dark Souls.
I literally didn't even get to play that time.
Nice.
Oh,
Damn it.
climb. I'm alive.
You and your screwbacks.
Oh,
I'm dead.
I know.
Motion fish is crazy.
Hi, Chi. We're both dead down here.
Did you end up dead by me?
What is that bomb string?
Oh no.
Ooh, that's a good bomb.
Wait, where'd that bomb come from? Wow, okay.
Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's about the part for the first.
Plunger. I know.
Oh, shit.
I win.
There's one way to use a bomb, yeah.
Me and the plunger win.
Good job.
I didn't even
Broke the
do
whole
anything.
map.
I was just existing. Oh
Oh,
no.
no, you got spinach.
I was trying to hold your hand back. I was trying to grab the
Ow.
bomb.
Ow.
They won't save me
Team
from the
Thunder.
waterfall.
I want it.
Ooh. This is
How is-
not
how is
OSHA
Red stuck
compliant,
up there?
guys.
I'm
That's something
I'm
this
putting
map
that too.
can't do.
I
How
got
are you
launched
still
by a bomb.
alive?
Oh shit. I'm
I
coming
got
out.
you.
That's my head, Ski.
I got you.
My brain.
Come in now.
My brain.
Today.
Oh come on! I just got back. I want to play the map.
And me free.
Oh,
I'm asleep,
I don't
Wambad.
even know.
Oh, I just got you too. Oh no, we're gonna blow up.
Gee, what have you done to us?
I didn't do it. I can't swim. I just flop around all weird.
Upside down.
They're stuck underneath.
I'm under the bridge.
You were broken.
When by being stuck under a bridge.
Dark Souls.
You just really?
Strong.
Giga, go after Red. He's trying to stick himself up there so he can't get out.
I mean, it's not gonna do much. I'm gonna be honest.
No, I'm strong.
Work anymore.
No,
it's just
no, I was strong. Damn it.
What Disney movie do I know where that was the answer? I was strong.
I don't know.
Oh no, I might be trapped.
Hey,
I'm under the bridge,
Stuck to
trapped.
this damn tree.
what am I?
Oh no, I see you under there.
Bridge. I'm just stuck again. I would please like to play this map. I would love to play this map one fucking round of doing something.
Yeah, no.
What?
Giga's got a fish.
Fly fishy.
I was stuck under the bridge the whole time.
So it was
Yeah, that's the
Kablingus.
downside about going up to the front of it, unfortunately. Got a bomb, don't make me use it.
Dark Souls.
Just kidding. I'm gonna use it anyway.
Oh gosh. No.
Now.
Ouch.
Not under the bridge again. Not under the bridge again. Not under the bridge again.
Oh wait, whoa! He got spinach. He got spinach.
No, Mac. Why? Why?
Welcome back,
I'm
Windbat.
strong. No.
Oh, I missed him. Windbat, I'm not going for you. I swear.
Oh no.
Oh god,
Just
he's
I went too far.
You kick too close to the sun.
I'm gonna go under the bridge again.
Oh no. No.
Boom.
I think the red stayed in the game though. Yep.
Yeah.
The realization there was a bomb.
Oh come on.
Dark Souls.
Dark Souls.
Dark Souls.
Oh man.
Do you win now, Mac?
He's so good at throwing.
Fuck you.
Oh.
I'm gonna target you every single time with bombs and fishes. You know.
Oh. That sucks for me.
Fish.
Wow.
Fish.
Damn it, Red.
And,
Go
Damn
off.
it, throw me. Don't do
Once
that.
you're
How
off,
are
that's
you
pretty much it.
not going off? How are you like...
Are you
I'm harder to
winning,
get
Red?
at because I'm bigger.
Yeah, apparently I grabbed her. I got this going where my fat ass is stuck between these points. Like, okay.
Nope.
No.
What if you
Yeah.
my lollipop. No.
I think I just threw myself off. Yes, I did.
Good.
Bomb.
What you get?
Oh, that's a
Swing
ball.
around in the throw does help. I find.
No. Yeah. Oh man.
Whoa.
No.
Well, she's gonna throw herself off the other direction.
Well, that was one way of doing it. Hey, give him
Oh,
a fish.
man. Plunger.
Dark Souls.
Boomerang. Wait, you know, when Mr. Boomerang. Please.
No, plunger.
Oh my god. It just.
I need my emotional support plunger.
It's this fucking mad.
Oh, wherever. Where I am. Negative. Where? Oh, I am. Oh, I was defying gravity. Okay, game. No one mourns the wicked anyway.
No, Giga,
Wait.
dang it.
Well, GG.
Hi, Red.
Final countdown.
That's where you threw it and
Oh my god.
Oh, banana.
5 minutes later.
Fish.
I think I timed it.
Can't hit you for
I
the
think I
life of
timed
me.
it once because I was
Can't
bored.
hit you for the life.
Poopy.
Oh. Climb.
I think I timed it when I was bored one time at work, and final countdown is like an actual 5 minute song. Just
Yeah,
5
it
minutes. You just time it to the last 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm gone.
Yup.
Let's go! Winner!
Nice job.
I'll count that one at 23:55:07.
Good job.
Hey, yo. Hey, yo.
We're
Ow.
just being nonchalant as we walk up towards the front now.
I was trying to be, and then somebody came in swinging.
Just a happy guy.
All right.
Jeez, Red, stop looking at my crotch.
He's not. He's
No.
looking at your ass. Oh, this one's
Oh,
fun.
this map.
This map's fun.
That's America's ass.
That's America's ass.
America's ass.
Oh my god. That's crazy. Marshmallow.
And shit.
Hey,
not a
what you got
wiener.
there? A knife!
I got
Oh, there's a movie here now.
marshmallow. Marshmallow.
What I got?
Marshmallow.
Cooking.
Nothing.
Oh, there you
marshmallow.
go. One of the logs.
No, I don't
I was
want
gonna-
you. I want the bomb next
I
to
was
you.
gonna share with you, Giga.
No, leave me
Yeah, you
alone.
can take a log.
I'll blow us both up.
Oh no.
Oh no.
No, Giga.
Yeah, you gotta get up fast
Drag me
so
back.
you don't freeze.
Oh man, that sucker punch there, Chi.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, no. I'm so close to the fire. Just let.
That one.
Oh, it went out.
Oh. Yeah, Mac, just take the logs. Take the logs. Mac, that's your bomb.
Oh god! No! No, that was crazy!
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up.
Oh, that's so funny. Everyone's going down with me. Hiya!
They can also die in the fire.
Yes. It's true.
Ow.
You wanna go for a
You're a
roast?
tiger. You sounds ow.
You don't wanna go for a roast?
I
You wanna go for a, I don't know, and come back?
No.
What?
I had nothing, okay? I'm not very creative. I'm not good on the spot. Ow. Oh, wait, no, that was you. Get fucked. Hey, that's a bomb.
I'm dead. Oh!
We're both gonna die, Chi.
Oh no!
I was gonna say.
The fire went out.
You guys ran away from the fire. I don't. Ow.
I didn't mean to. Just kind of happened that way.
Oh, thanks, thanks for the follow.
This is my fire. You guys all stay away.
We're beating the crap out of each other.
I got a knife.
Get out of here with your bomb.
She has a knife!
Another bomb.
I'm on.
Get
I'm
away
fired.
from me. Where am I? Fish.
Oh, damn.
Fish.
Another bomb.
You want a fish?
No, no. I'm on fire. Drop, drop, and
What I
roll.
got,
Stop,
G?
drop, and roll.
Oh shit.
Oh, the fish was a trap.
Oh, you did?
Fire! The cake is a lie.
Damn, we are dead.
Well, apparently the fish and the s'mores are too.
Ow, okay. Ow.
Wait.
It's not even alive.
Punch.
Max got a bomb.
Punch.
I don't have a bomb. Never
Oh
had
no, I blew up!
Oh, no,
Oh,
Oh no, my
you have
icicle.
no, give me my
a banana
sausage.
memory.
Sausage.
Sausage.
Oh.
Oh, Max gonna burn to death. Got it. Oh, Max.
I got saved by the Sega bomb. And who?
Oh well.
What? Okay, you know, I can't grab
So who's
people.
still in there so I can... Oh, they're... Are they both? Okay, hang on. There we go.
Oh,
Wait a second. Wait.
Oh gosh.
Bomb!
ran off towards the other fire.
Ding.
Wow, who do you might sweep this one?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't say anything. Yes. I just gotta play Run Like Hell. Run Like Hell. Oh, you're chasing me. This is stupid app. I'm just a kitty cat. Meow, 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 meow.
Meow, meow,
Burn!
meow.
Burn to the
Ah,
fire!
no! I blew up.
Oh, why am I frozen?
No, it's cold.
Bunny! Cook bunny!
No. I'm chewy. You don't want me.
Oh dear God! Oh my God!
It hit you in the head and knocked...
It knocked me out and then blew up.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry, but this game
Ah!
is racist because there's no deer character.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
True, that is how that works.
There needs to be a deer.
Damn it, I don't want you red. I wanted the bomb.
Devs, I will commission someone to model a deer character for your game.
I'm just a mama mouth.
Why? Because we're supposed to take out red.
We're taking red. We are taking red.
What do I do?
That's not
What
sweeping.
the hell?
Wait, why didn't that kill you?
Ow, knocked
I
myself
walked
out
you
though.
so
That's more
far away.
impressive.
That's crazy.
Hey, look, wait a minute. We can talk about this. Okay. Okay. Chill.
Oh.
You beat me, fish.
I didn't mean to. I was aiming for red and then he ran away.
I'm choosing a path of peace, okay?
Where about you just blow yourself
peace.
up?
But what matters is if he freezes.
Yes.
Why did
Yes.
red not freeze?
Maybe it's because he's so fluffy.
I'm a floofy kitty. Hey, so
Are you not dead out there?
No.
Not freeze.
I think night freezes faster.
That probably could be, yeah.
Oh,
What was it?
there's no way.
Red sweeps.
There's no way me playing passive just Ah. I didn't get one kill.
Get fish,
Not
sucker.
one kill. That.
Red just sweeped
I
us.
have no idea how you didn't die out there without fire.
Let's
Right?
make this clear. I sweeped you and didn't do one kill. Friendship always wins. I'm friendship king. Look at all this friendship we have.
I'm like drunk passing out over there.
Oh my god.
See? Looks like. Oh shit.
There we
Ooh,
go.
This is new.
Yeah, this is a new one.
Garfat.
Oh, there's lava. What the fuck?
Yeah. It's got a lot more
You know.
extreme.
Normal.
I kind of just want to like see what happens when the time goes up. So I'll just
It's like
ride.
shoots and ladders.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Hold on, I want to do it from the top rope. Hold on, I just want to do that from the top rope.
Like a full cage
No,
crash.
I want to do the top rope thing. That was
There's your
no. Somebody's salty. I whooped
No!
his ass.
Oh god, instant death.
Yeah, I'm so no, Giga, no.
Oh no, I'm having PTSD of playing Peak.
Mimi, new.
Ah, kitty.
TSD.
Kitty likes his. Oh god, get it up there, Kitty's on fire.
Oh, there's
The throw is so
what the
good.
Oh my god! So violent.
Oh, there was a bomb apparently. That's the death of me. Can I climb out? Can I climb out?
Oh,
don't
you can
climb
swim in the
down,
lava?
climb
Oh, I
up.
didn't even try.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
did not try. I just gave up. Maybe out of 10.
Fish.
Oh, that was a good punch. No!
Sploosh.
Where's my
the
thumb up
first
emote?
Good job, Mac.
Where's my Terminator thumb up emote? As I sink to
Okay, I'm not gonna win anymore now. I'm not gonna win. But look at this move. Look at this move.
Sorry, Chi.
No.
No, can I get top? Ah! Okay.
Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go.
Ran back.
No.
Ow, 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 ow. Why am I? Okay, don't be out of the ring at all. You just catch on fire. Hey.
Basically.
Ooh,
I thought you were gonna try the top rope.
I tried, but then I caught on fire.
Damn.
Ow. I was looking at the bomb and shit.
Ow. Ow.
Oh.
Ow. I got a rock in my head. Ah, no.
That's what you get for knocking me out.
Okay.
Button mash, button mash.
Button mash.
What the fuck?
Ooh.
I'm up. That's all I know. There's a bomb.
Okay.
Hold on.
Ain't no day.
Out of the lava. I'm back in the ring, bitch. Okay. Okay, I was joking. I didn't mean to call you bitch. I didn't mean to.
Can't throw. Can't throw.
Oh,
I
I'm
can't
gonna
throw.
die
I can't
due to
throw.
fire.
Now you're on fire.
Oh, I rolled into the lava. Made a break.
Holy.
Rolled out of the fire into the lava.
Oh.
That's.
Meow.
Passive wins again.
The fish.
Playing passively, okay.
Except when I fucked up Chi. Don't count. Don't look at that part.
Yeah, except when you fucked me up.
Yeah. Beating up Chi doesn't count.
Apparently.
Wow.
That's so mean, Red.
He's only saying that because I hit him first.
You know what? I don't mind. I need a drink. I'll die. I will freely die. I need a drink so bad.
No, I'm here. I'm gonna grab a drink. I'll be right
Just
back.
throwing them off the map. Oh, rocks.
Ow! Ah! Ah! No, I don't like this. No!
I'm ready.
Oh man,
I don't know the pattern. I don't know the pattern. I know.
You just see shadows on the ground.
Boo!
Time? No.
I think I don't like
Yeah,
the
I
I still
smash.
don't know what happened, but I'm gonna so.
Oh no! On fire!
The whole stage catches on fire. Oh, this sucks.
Did you hear that? Here's some can opening ASMR.
Get him! Let's go!
Oh, you're good, Karen. Ow. Oh.
I'm back.
Oh no!
What is
How'd
that?
you do that?
We thought you
Can't get up.
Wait, fish.
I know you lost your glasses.
Celebratory banana.
Oh, wow.
What the?
Oh, that's it. I think that's game. Oh, climb, big
That's
man.
gotta be
Nope.
it. I'll be upset if it isn't it, actually.
Let's go. Fish.
Oh shit.
The slow motion that guy's giving me every time.
Oh, what the hell? Oh, dude, I'm drop kicking
That
his
wasn't
head
the
and I
person I was
just
trying to
rolled on
punch,
him.
but
Okay. Can't
What's
fucking
crazy is
fight that.
I'm learning how to throw people off by watching you throw people off.
Getting so good at throwing people off, it's crazy.
He is good.
Oh god!
She's just headbutting people.
I'm not headbutting anyone.
Problem is, I'm learning
hitting
now.
the air apparently. Ow! And a rock. Ow!
that rock.
I know!
Okay, well,
go.
yeah, that rock just.
I can't get out! I can't get in!
Crazy!
I can't get in! There we go.
And my cat decided to be right in front of my camera. Sit right in
Oh, that's
front of
Mom.
my. I love this girl. I can't.
No! Ow!
You had me
My face!
stand right in front of me. I love you though.
Hey, wake up.
Oh no! Why? You like wake up so I can kick
Yeah, this
you.
is gonna suck.
Oh, rocks.
Ow! No, I'm on fire!
Burning rocks.
Yep.
I'm on fire! No, I died of burning.
Oh.
Smoked bunny.
I'm just dead in the middle of the ring.
No, and the fluffy red hoodie.
I can throw a fish at myself.
Ooh, good bomb.
What the hell?
I have a banana.
Giga like Mario swings that ball. Chia, you
No.
actually
On the
dead?
banana.
Yes, I died in the fire. I burned.
Oh,
I didn't know you could die in the
oh
ring.
shit. I'm
yeah,
in fire.
this is the
Yeah,
fire.
in the fire.
Well, everything's
Oh,
about to be
oh,
fired here in
yeah.
a second. We just both knock each other out. Yes, we did. I died.
Yeah!
Throw self in lava.
Didn't see that coming, did you?
Sure didn't.
Save him! Throw someone after you. Didn't see that one come, did you? Oh, I can't throw.
I'm back, bitches.
Oh no! No! No!
What the hell? I like fell.
Roll.
Now that I got
And
some
we roll.
No, here come the rocks!
And then we.
Okay, well.
Press every button. Press every button.
No! No!
Ow!
I would tell you, it's not pressing the button. It's just
No, man!
Wait.
Bullshit.
I tried climbing back up.
right in the middle.
No,
Oh,
Matt.
man.
No, Max hat went in the lava! No! 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 You guys!
This is absolutely horrible. I hate it.
This map's brutal.
Yeah, it's the worst I've played.
Oh, what a ball.
Oh no, I'm out.
What a
I'm out
ball.
for sure.
Works.
Some prediction.
I'm out for sure. I live.
Okay.
Wait.
Giga gave up.
Oh no!
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh.
fish.
Oh no, he's coming back!
This is dumb.
Home and
Need more banana peels.
Right? The more banana peels. Just look out. Just slip inside. Just slip inside on this banana peel.
Everywhere. Banana.
Oh,
Wait, I'm gonna die.
Am I dead? Am I dead?
Oh.
Am I dead?
Get out of here.
Oh, I think I'm dead. Nope. I'm
Giga's
alive.
made of iron.
Banana. Never right.
Oh no! What happened? What? What just happened? Wait!
And that's what happened.
Oh! I was like, what just happened?
Oh.
Oh
I don't know how I
my
lived that
God.
long. I was in the lava 3 times almost.
Yeah, that was a good round for you.
No,
This never
that
stops
Giga.
me. I will always come back.
No! 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 Oh wait, Wambat.
Oh!
Hey,
Don't pull the ears.
Oh,
You know you don't
God.
like that either.
If that's not a concussion, I don't know what is.
I can't throw you over for some reason.
Bruh, it's gonna.
Ah, no! Wambat!
Giga's cheating.
Wambat hates me. He always picks on me.
Come on.
What the fuck? How did you just?
Don't do that.
Oh shit.
Mom.
Dude. Get out of here.
How is that possible? What?
Dude, it's baloney.
Wait.
Hey,
Hang on a sec.
Stop Let me have this one. That's crazy. The uppercut is unmatched.
Don't mind me. I'm just a cat on fire. Meow. Get off me. Can I stop being on fire for
I burned to death.
Thank you, game.
I have a fish.
Fish.
More banana.
Stuck on a fish.
Banana.
Oh, I think I ran out of stamina. You get to live today. Oh, that's a bomb. No one gets to live today.
More banana. This battle's crazy right now.
Yeah, okay. Get off me, Jesus.
Oh.
Okay. Fucking
Wimbat's dead body was flying into the lava. Oh, poor Wimbat. Ow.
Oh,
I forgot my uppercut, man. I don't know how you do that.
I'm actually just.
Was not aiming for you.
Whoa!
This bullshit.
Bro, I'm trying to get Giga. Giga's just gonna get up.
Oh no! I'm gonna blow up!
Rock.
Ah! I'm on fire!
no.
I'm on fire! Ow! It hurts! No, get away! Get away, Giga! Whee!
Why, man?
Nice hit, Chi.
It was a complete accident! I was just throwing punches. I know I slipped.
Rock.
I know, rocks! I know, punch!
Fire.
Oh no, I'm on fire!
No! Damn it, Giga.
I'm on fire too.
Let me be free.
I decided, without a doubt
Oh,
in my
no.
soul,
Oh,
this is
no.
the worst map.
No! 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 Damn it!
100%.
I don't like this map, it's hard.
You just like grapple. Let me go. Damn it.
I think you're holding me.
Yeah, more banana.
What is this kung
Swear to
fu
God.
crap? Oh, thank God.
It's a banana.
Banana.
There's no way.
Oh,
Banana.
banana.
I won.
Everyone has a win except me!
Banana. Everyone but me. Okay,
Ah, gee, yeah.
first up.
Yeah,
No!
get him, Rob!
No,
I'm back.
Zay out.
Oh no.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh,
How?
Never
How
mind.
did you knock me out? What is that?
no, what happened?
Che, we can talk about
It's crazy. This ball is.
We can talk about it. We can talk about it.
Ah! DDT! Oh no, I slipped!
fast.
that was a to the face.
Ugh. Wait, give him the people's elbow.
Ow.
Alright. Are you on me? Am I on you? Hey, hey,
You're
hey.
fire.
What the hell?
What you doing down there? You see that geek over there? You think what I'm thinking? Whoop his ass! Oh shit.
Be a decoy. You got it.
Banana.
Bananas are working. Get more bananas.
More bananas. More bananas.
I'm just taking it to the face over and over.
Damn thing again.
How did that rock not take you
I
out?
got it.
Oh, I think that's it. Yeah. Well, I think that's a red win on West, Wambat, you pull off the win here.
No, there's no way.
Nope.
Wee.
I tried so
Wow.
still couldn't beat red.
Red is crushing us.
Yes.
I play a lot of
Well,
competitive
it's not
games.
like I didn't make him sweat for
He's a
this
real
one.
he's a real gamer boy,
You
that
did.
one. It's a gamer boy in fox clothing.
Ah,
Ouch. My feet.
Oh god, what's happening?
Punched on the tit right there.
what's up? What's
Ah,
up?
the bridge.
Titty punch. Titty punch. Wait, I love this map.
This is a fun one.
This one is a fun one.
I'm not grabbing speed
We'll
on
do
this
it,
map.
G.
Nope. Somebody else
I wasn't
got it.
gonna do anything. Why'd you hit me?
Don't do it, G.
Giga! No, Giga! What the fuck?
Nope.
Wait a
Oh,
minute.
you just
Don't-
took
Well,
out
we went up together.
No.
Guys.
No, I'll go for
That's-
Giga. He killed Ching.
Kinda crazy. I was gonna try to get to the
Go.
other side, like
Bitch.
the chicken across the road, you know?
He's so
Man.
he plays this game far too much.
Oh, Nana.
What the fuck? Ah, ah.
No, I was gonna throw the poop at him. Take a turn.
I don't need to be able to see to throw a punch at you.
It was worth it. That's all I'm saying.
Dude, why is Giga
Yep.
so good when he's not even?
Yeah,
Oh my
someone
God.
hacked my game so that my punches don't punch.
What's it, bro?
It's because I'm on Linux.
It's because you're
Dude,
on
I have
Linux.
that guy.
I
Giga actually knows how to
know.
play this game, so I have to like get creative on beating Giga. I feel like that's my only hope.
Oh, Wambat takes me down. Because I always
Come on, damn it. You
throw
fuck.
me. Jeez.
That's what I was trying to do, but the damn thing wouldn't pick me up.
Oh,
No.
Oh,
We're staying.
no.
Oh no.
That. Yeah.
Oh, Giga got the win.
Damn it.
Yep, I managed to catch the edge and flip myself up before falling.
Get
completely.
game. Rigged.
How? How are you so good at that?
I got you.
The amount of damage you do is directly corresponding to your stamina. So you walk around and only punch hard. And dash to punch.
There's an
You
arrow in my
punch a
head.
lot harder.
Oh, he's right.
Yeah, the more stamina you have, the harder your punches hit. So that's why I walk around and only,
Oh,
and I only
no.
rush whenever I go to attack.
Yeah, that's impossible for me.
No.
Ow, shit. Wait a minute, please.
You see, the throwing part is what I can't do for some reason.
Throwing is hard.
that
That's a whole nother
is-
monster.
Yeah, you have to like get both hands and then you have to whirl them like
Whoa,
around
shit.
in 180.
Well, that worked.
I was just standing there and it broke. I was scratching my belly. I was just.
Oh,
Get him, G.
I can't. I suck.
oh, hey, bomb. Oh, mistakes.
Oh, hit the bomb. Oh, no.
And you
Come
live?
Give him a push. Give him a push.
I'm trying. It's not working. I know.
He's got plot armor.
For
This
real.
game is rigged. I'm leaving a negative review on this.
Get him, G. You got him.
He's out. He's out.
Never mind.
He's
Oh,
out.
he's gone.
Oh.
Ow.
Oh.
Well, okay.
No. No. No.
Pusher.
Whoa.
Oh no!
That's crazy.
No fish! I got fish.
I didn't do anything.
I got hit with a fish.
She fell.
I fell. Oh god!
Starts broken.
Oh
now.
shit. Oh, whoa.
I'm out.
What?
What is happening?
No, that's mean.
look.
Ah, why? Why is it like this?
Okay, wait.
terrible.
Truce.
No,
Oh,
no,
wait.
no,
Alright, that's what you did to me. I'm going to this now.
Okay, we gotta get
Banana
out of here. Truce, Red. Truce.
How am I supposed to?
Sometimes I can hit it in between.
I can't
Wait,
make that
Mac is still alive.
I can't
Mac
make
is still
that
alive.
jump.
The truth.
How do you make that jump?
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck this map, dude. Fuck. I'm outta here.
Alright,
I'm
truth's
outta
over.
here.
Max, like I'm out.
Yeah, this is too. Like, what the fuck?
Not the banana. Not the banana.
Now what?
Oh!
Great job.
Oh, that was great.
Why was it like that? Why is it like? Okay, we're good.
It just does that.
That's
It's
good.
what it does sometimes.
Hi, ow. It was just
See, this is playable. The other map wasn't playable.
I've shared with Red my secrets. Next he will surpass me.
I know.
Well, you already did
Yeah.
anyways, but you really will now.
No, before it's creative, now I'm a gamer.
Now you know the mechanics.
Get that shit off the screen.
Oh, I'm dead.
Oh no, I wanted that.
Oh shit.
I'm dead.
Oh,
Spinach. No, I wanted that. Give me it.
oh shit.
Spinach.
I don't want to be on this side anymore. I don't want to be on this side anymore.
You were all trash.
What?
Can't you like attack your
Oh yeah.
Oh!
That
Load
was
up.
an option. The bitch. Well, let's make it fun. Here's some bananas.
Ah, I just ran
shit.
off.
Oh my god, Chi.
I can't. I slipped.
Get up, G. Get on his head stuck.
Oh no, I slipped. Stupid banana peels. Oh god, no.
Oh.
My neck is
I
broken.
slipped. I slipped again. I couldn't even move.
Oh god.
I threw that in there to help you, G. You walked over it.
Listen, I don't control my little rubber body, okay?
What do
Outta
you
here.
mean? That's what the controllers are for.
No, I just,
my
I just go in directions and it
Damn.
flops around.
Oh wow.
Oh, Giga, no.
Why not
No.
jump? What if I
No,
want to jump?
I
Got
saw
me.
that. You go back on that side of the bridge.
Let me climb.
No, what did I just say, Mac? You go
Wait a
back
minute,
on that
I'm just
side.
playing Ring Around the Rosie right now.
Buddy, I'm reporting you for cheating. Buddy.
Oh god.
And then I just can't deliver with the
Where did I
throw.
get knocked out? Okay, I should just no. No,
Try to
you
get
mean
that
no.
boomerang.
Oh
No.
shit, not again! What are you guys doing? I want to play boomerang. Come on. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I want to play the boomerang.
Oh no!
I'm just going for the boomerang.
That was
You're trying to
crazy.
hit
Yeah,
me.
let me show you. Let me show you. Watch out!
That bridge
Boomerang?
That's a
just
bomb.
like threw me halfway across the world.
No, wait a second! I was just trying to play boomerang.
Let go of me. You invisible jerk. He fell off, yes.
You couldn't see me. I grabbed you and then the thing broke
Oh.
immediately.
Hey. Well, don't mind me. I'm just vibing.
Get it? Don't you do it,
Okay.
Rob?
I just
Don't you do it? Oh no!
Oh, I did it!
Hey, get your fat butt out of my face.
Hey, G. G, what are you doing?
Don't hit me!
I want to hit you, though.
Don't hit me! No! Don't hit me! No!
It's crazy.
You're actually
Wait, no, what
the
are you
worst.
I'm dancing. I'm a little stuck, but I'm dancing.
Look at me better with it. Hey, G.
I don't know. I'm scared.
Hey. He's gonna walk here. Hey, G.
Oh,
No! Get away! No! Damn it!
I can't see very well.
Rainbow's like fucking cheating. Like,
No, my stamina's going out. I'm holding it.
oh, you're holding it? Oh.
Yeah, I'm holding the rope.
Oh.
Ow. Never mind.
Oh my god, you murdered that man.
Oh, it's too funny.
Ignore me, this is not what it looks like. Ow.
How is that?
Yum, yum,
Okay,
yum,
you have him,
yum,
Giga.
Right up into finish. Now, I'm stuck in this giant cutthroat blood. Do I
I
don't
know.
want to be in it? I'm gonna, now, god damn it, let me play.
Just taking a little nap.
It's a little happy.
I'm going over here.
Ow.
This is my side of the bridge. No one's allowed over here. Hey. What did I say? No one's allowed over here. My side of the bridge.
What is
okay.
this? Nobody, even yourself included.
Even myself.
Nor Cleor. Nor
So hard to
Cleor.
throw people
How do I
off
get
the
back on?
bridge.
It is, yeah. To get him up over the rope.
Oh,
Hey, guys,
nice
look.
hit.
The best luck is to just like chuck them this way. What? Oh, well,
Oh.
that works.
I
That's the
can't
best
go
one I
through
can.
it.
I hope that bridge is break.
Sorry,
Come
Mac.
on, get up. I'm so happy.
Oh no, fish! I got fish! No!
Oh, hit the bump.
Oh,
Oh,
I blowed up! Oh no! No!
Oh my god, when
That
the
was
bunny
so
dies, it
frustrating
looks
and so hard to
so
do. Holy
sad.
shit.
What's
I feel
that?
so bad
My
when the bunny's
God.
gonna die.
You know, because they look so
Ah,
cute.
shit.
Oh no.
Cute and sad.
Just AFK.
oh, sorry.
I was just standing there. I was choosing peace.
Peace is not an option in a game of war.
What are you trying to do, Giga?
Oh,
Oh,
the animals.
damn. All right. Well, you do that. Use the rest of why I'm dead.
No, Giga, stay away! Stay away from me! No,
That
fish!
wasn't me.
Oh, sorry, that was for Giga.
No! No! My demise!
Oh, come on. Mac.
Just over here spamming emotes because I don't know what to do because I can't walk on this shit.
Oh,
Fish. Oh no! What happened? Mac got the win.
I just ran for my life.
like going back to AFK. AFK. You're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
AFK.
Yeah, he went potty.
Okay, wait back to it. We ran that alone.
Ow! No!
Oh.
Fuck! Alright, now I'm going potty.
My side of the bridge.
Okay, that's a ping issue. For real, for real.
Alright, you know what? I'm tired of that being AFK. Hold on, let me just, like, real quick, just...
All right.
Oh, way back to back.
Okay, I literally just picked. Okay, thanks.
Okay, that wasn't even my fault. That wasn't me.
Uh-huh.
I don't have the ice gun.
How do I always
I
get
got a
punched?
terrible
Like,
shot on this
fucking
bridge.
ammo. Hey, wait, let's talk about this.
Oh,
Talk
hey,
about this.
sunflowers. Sorry about that. I didn't hear you with all this the emote sounds or all the sounds. All sounds the same with this game.
I'm back. I'm not back. I don't think I'm coming back from this. Giga, tell me. I just died. What was that? I was in the air and I just died. I don't even know what killed me. I died in the air.
The game's like enough. You're dead.
She's AFK.
No. 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 Well, this is
The one
going
time I
well.
got a good throw.
My finger hurts from the controller.
I think we should just give Chia a win. Just 'cause she's AFK. She's back!
I'm back, bitches!
Oh.
Punch, 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 punch. Punch, 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 punch.
Roll.
Punch, 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 punch.
Oh, I don't want to be over here. Ow! I just jumped into your fist.
Headbutt.
Oh.
I'm gone.
No,
Okay.
my head is stuck.
Oh!
First
I
one
am
to
just-
drop
What's
loses.
happening right now? Oh my god!
Matt.
My little leggies, they're just a going.
It's a good Mac.
I wanted
man.
it. Oh,
No,
it's gone.
she is
Okay.
somehow still hanging in there.
Oh no, I'm stuck.
Ooh, violet.
No, put that down.
Giga, I promise I won't use it on you. I promise I won't use it.
Oh my.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, you don't
Sorry,
have to
I
worry
said-
about promises.
Ow. No. No.
What is going on? I'm seeing it. Oh.
Get away from me. Wham back.
I saw you going for that ice gun.
Hurrah. Just got
I
up.
just want a toy.
Uh-huh. The ice gun as a toy.
Yeah, it's a toy.
Oh shit.
There you go, Red. Gets a poop on the back.
Oh no.
All I know is that I'm dangling now, but I can't see where.
Oh! Oh, I just usually jacked in my jaw.
Ugh.
Giga keeps punching me in the face. It's not fair.
Ugh.
I can't even punch anything.
Holy shit.
The problem is Giga knows how to throw.
Holy shit.
I grabbed the wrong person.
The problem is I have like 200 ping.
Bro, I just got
Oh.
back.
Well, my ass just got hit
climbing
by
my
200
way.
ping. Hang on one second, guys.
Yeah, I'm good.
Bot be gone.
No!
Finally
No!
We get the win.
Oh,
Oh man,
He was knocked.
we got stuck. I got stuck on you. Took you down with me by accident.
You winner. My mission is accomplished. Hi.
Oh.
Alright.
Give me
Hello.
that.
Hello,
Alright,
old
I
friend.
think that had to
What
be.
about you?
I think that had to be my last one though. I gotta go to bed.
Oh, it's
That is-
okay. That was fun. That was fun. Thanks for inviting me.
what time is it?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull
11.
the same stunt because it's during the week.
Yelp.
Yup.
Happy
It'll be
Monday, all.
Monday.
It do be
Hey,
Monday.
Yep.
Fail. The
We always do
Alright,
the
give me a
same
sec.
exact amount of maps. You ever realize it?
What's the menu button?
Always do the what?
Is it the... What's the menu button? Is it this one? No. This one?
Me,
No. This one? Ah, that one.
Let me exit the game. Swap it
Oh
back
my
over to
God,
my
they
talking
exploded.
stream.
All right. Thanks for coming,
Hey, Chi,
guys.
do we want to send them somewhere?
Giga, they're all
Who's
dead.
still streaming?
I have no idea.
Red,
I
you
haven't-
still
I
going?
haven't even looked yet.
Yeah, I gotta do WoW shit. I'll probably do it for like another hour.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
Well,
shit. All
coming to
right.
You then.
Yeah, coming to you.
I win.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
Exploded.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you very
It's been a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
I have to tinkle.
We gotta get
Same.
We
Same.
gotta we gotta get Robin on some yep sometime because he really wants to play.
I do have to buy it. Yeah, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I got yep.
It's fun.
Because you told me to.
Oh,
Okay, I'm out of here. Goodbye, my friends.
bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
Have a good one.
All right. I'm gonna go do my
All right.
my bye byes. Goodbye, guys.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just straight up send them.
All right. Thank you so much for the follow. Rob told me to come lurk or I'd be fired. Well, I appreciate the lurkies. Thank you. Every lurk is appreciated. We're gonna. I think we're just gonna. I'm just gonna send everybody right to red, probably. Good time. Cause Red is he's playing the new WoW expansion. So we'll just go to Red. Having a good time, having a good time. All right. Oh, that was nice, Siri bot. Because Linux? I mean, yeah, Linux isn't really optimized for gaming, huh? I'm sorry. I'm glad you came, though. It was fun. I miss playing games with you, Mac. All right, we are going to go over to see Red. Thank y'all for hanging out. I appreciate it. Should be around more often now that work has subsided. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Cool. Thank you guys for all the love and support today. Thanks for hanging out. Party Animals was super fun. I got a bunch of good clips. So that was cool. Can look out for those. I won't have time to edit them till tomorrow, but thanks everybody. I love you. Goodbye. Get the fuck out. Goodbye.